Was that announced? Was that announced today? Was that announced today? That wasn't announced.
Hold the line.
It was specifically to ain't coming.
My brother, don't do this.
Hey, PlayStation games day and date on PC.
Yeah. Why you
throw away my PS5 now?
Sure, but why are you switching the topic though?
You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's PlayStation going third party.
Okay,
they're all going third party.
Sure, but guess what? I won't be buying the Xbox for PlayStation games. I know we're saying that.
Well, Xbox making more money, so
Xbox
making more money. I'm gonna pull a post up. Xbox making more money.
Hold up. No one's buying Xbox anyway, even for Xbox.
Yeah. Exactly.
No games till 2025 for PlayStation. No AAA games till 2025.
Don't worry.
No wonder you guys are begging for Xbox games.
Don't worry about it. Xbox got our back.
The show is already started.
Yeah, we gave you the little shitty games that we're done with.
Okay.
D-Bat.
Y'all don't want to see Thieves? I thought that was the shit.
We are starting.
I don't like Sea of Thieves. I never capped for Sea of Thieves. No way.
D-Bat. The Kraken is locking. The Kraken is locking, dog.
Okay, just so you guys know, we were live. We were live there. They caught that little bit right there up front, which is fine. This is going to be a great show. This is why I wanted to have these great personalities, these great YouTubers with us here tonight. Guys, we got a great show for you. You know, a lot of news broke today. Very excited. Great to have this panel. We have more people coming as the show goes on, which is just great because this is a big news event day. It was covered across the globe, and we're going to cover it here tonight. That being said, guys, I want to make the intro fairly quick because we have so many things to talk about tonight. It's not necessarily a lot of topics. It's one topic broken into 27 parts. Okay, that being said, if you will, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I want to say thank you to each one of you guys. We have literally, for me, it's a lot. For my channel, it's a lot. I want to put it out there. Almost 150 new people in just like a week and a half. I want to say thank you to all subscribing to the channel. We got a lot more content. I've been doing a lot more stuff on Twitch. We're going to do a lot more Twitch streaming with Helldivers 2 this weekend. I'll be clipping that, putting the VOD up. I hope you guys enjoy it on this channel as well. That being said, right above that description is the join button. That is how you become a Mooch Maniac family member, and it means the world to me that you guys are here and becoming a member of the family. You see your name come up in lights. Your name is in green in the chat. That being said, I will read off those names as we get going later on, but I want to get to this amazing panel because I only have some of these guys for so long, and we have a lot to get to. And I'll go ahead and start with the one and only here. He's been here with us every single week for almost about 2 months now. The great Craig, the tech guy. You guys know him as the Messiah of Xbox, which actually will come true tonight. Craig, welcome back to the show, buddy. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite. Shout out to you, the panel, and the chat. Make sure you hit the like button and share. Make sure you sub to all these guys that are on the panel. And yeah, ready to get started.
Here we go, buddy. Getting started. We're going to go to the great J-Dub. Jay, we've been doing a lot of Helldivers 2 gaming over the past week. Not just that, a lot of talking behind the scenes. Had to have you on such a big day like this tonight. Jay, how you doing this evening?
Doing good. You know I wouldn't miss it for the world.
I appreciate that. I know you were doing the tour de podcast today, so I'm very honored that you could join us this late in the evening. I appreciate that. The great Mega Cloud, he says, D-Batch damage controlling right out the gate. Listen, D is here to say his side. It's not necessarily damage controlling, all right, Mega? But the super chat's working. It's a miracle. And I'll also try to fix my mic as we go. Of course, I'm always having microphone issues, as you guys know on the show. That's a me problem, not a you problem. That being said, without further ado, the great D-Batch is with us. And D, great compliment before the show. He goes, you know, I've got a lot on my plate, but Mooch, for you, knowing you a long time, I got to stop by and give my 2 cents. So D, great to have you on CrossFire tonight, buddy. How you doing this evening?
I'm good. I don't know why I feel like I'm going to get ganged on tonight, but it's all good.
No, you're going to be fine, D. Not only do you have... Look, you got me in your corner. You got Wandering Duck. You're going to be all right. Everything's going to be fine. It's an equal crossfire here tonight. I really feel that way, D.
I got to say, though, we have a lot of stuff to dissect, to go through from today's Xbox podcast. And I'm sure we're going to have various views and agreements and disagreements. So I'm excited, man. Let's just go.
Absolutely, buddy. Shout out to the great Carlos Crespin. He says, pineapple belongs on pizza. That is all. That is incorrect, Carlos. The judges don't agree with you, but I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. The great Porter Rock 77 wanted me on 60 frames, no lag earlier this week, and we did an outstanding 3-hour podcast over there. I thought I brought the energy, P-Rock, and I know I don't have to worry about you. The energy will be brought tonight. P-Rock, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, my brother? You know, your only friend is YouTube Streets, Porter Rock 77. Grand opening, grand closing. And D, you're not going to get jumped. We're all Xbox now. Every one of us. We are all listen. We all bleed green today. We're all bleeding green today. We got you, bro. We're together now. Listen, we're family now.
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Now it's gonna be a great show. We got some great, interesting personality. I also got my fellow Marine brother here, Wandering Dutch.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Separate Fidelis, my brother. You know what I'm saying?
You guys are
and it's gonna be a great show.
You're doing all the work for me, guys. I appreciate that. Without any further ado, I'll go ahead and say welcome to the Wandering Dutch. Now, Dutch, I know it's late over there in the pond, but I gotta say, Dutch, you are always well prepared. I know you probably had about 2 monsters, 3 espressos, so you're all set. Dutch, how you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm all good. It's definitely going to be an interesting one. I can already hear the fight in the chat here, and I'm back. A playful fight, not like aggressive, and that's what it's all about. We're allowed to jest with each other, prod each other, and have fun, but ultimately it is about these very interesting topics that are open to interpretation. So it's going to be good.
100%. The chat is going to be very respectful. I know they will. They're here every week, guys. Enjoy the conversation and get into it yourselves. But, hey, of course, keep it respectful. That doesn't need to be said. The great Nib is with us as well. Nib is also across the pond over there working diligently. You know, I have a few people that when I do make it over there, I will be visiting. Nib, you're a fascinating individual. I love your gaming takes, but unfortunately, I'm more interested in that fine cuisine. But, Nib, nonetheless, welcome to the show. How you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. It's late, but I can already feel this one's going to be a doozy.
Absolutely. I know
that little intro.
I knew it was going to be a doozy the minute you said you were going to withstand some of your tweets just to reveal them tonight. So I know it's going to be a locked and loaded podcast tonight for sure, Nib. I appreciate you being here. And last but certainly not least, really great to have the great Broken Games with us again, Broken Games HD. BG on the show. BG, how you doing this evening, buddy? I got to tell you, very excited to get your take on things, but how are you?
Hey, what's up? Appreciate the invite. Yeah, some industry changing stuff happening this week, so look forward to talking about it.
Well, BG, listen, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the hot seat first and foremost, okay? So the official Xbox podcast was just recently, about 3 hours ago or so. And, what does it mean when you heard before the show, every screen is an Xbox? And what you were thinking, the build-up, the hype, some of it was a bit embellished. Some of it actually could be interpreted that down the road, things could change. But how did your opinion change on the news that was happening the past 10 days versus after what you saw from Phil and company on the show that aired, like I said, about 3 p.m. Eastern today?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like half of that podcast was just stuff they've said just in a different way with different language over the past few years, especially like the latter half of that podcast. I'm like, every screen is an Xbox. It's like every year they come up with a different saying that essentially means Xbox is everywhere. And it's like, so that's all that really means. The first half of the podcast is where all the, the real details were, as far as like the 4 games going multi-plat, what their criteria is for, how they determine what games are going to go over there. And before we get into, all that detail stuff, just high level, I'll say that things in the industry are normally never one-offs. So yeah, throughout that whole podcast, he's trying to like soothe and lessen the blow.
Yeah.
He continually reiterates, oh, it's just 4 games. It's just this. It's just that. We still believe in exclusives. He did that throughout the entire podcast, and I'm like, bro, nothing is ever a one-off in the industry.
Right.
You may test some things out, but it's usually never a one-off. So
yeah.
And the funny thing is, he really reiterated, Starfield's not one of these games. Indiana Jones is not one of these games. But then in the interview with Tom Warren, you mentioned one of the questions we asked him is, you mentioned Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't part of the 4 rumors, but will these ever come to PS5? Can you rule that out? And his response is, I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform.
Yep. Bingo.
Hey, I think here what's going on here is that Microsoft bought a bunch of third-party companies, and those companies' models are based on third-party games. their games being everywhere. And for those companies to continue to be successful, they have to continue to release these games on multiple platforms. I think Broken Games is right. I think they're testing the waters here, and they want to see, you know, how much sales they're going to get. I think Hi-Fi Rush is going to sell really good. I think Sea of Thieves is going to sell really good. Pentiment not my type of game, but it's popular enough. Ground is not my type of game, but it's family orientated, so I could see it doing good maybe on like Nintendo or something. So they're trying to test the waters here. I think they kind of got the message that certain games are off limits, and if I'm just, you know, going from my gut, I think like the core games that are Xbox's identity, like the Forza, the Gears, the Fable, these type of games, I think they'll remain. But I think games like Starfield, where once again they bought a third-party company, where traditionally their games are on multiple platforms, I think these type of games, we're going to see that staggered release where it comes like 6 months, like a year on other platforms.
So the thing that I'm hearing, and BG, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the interpretation I kind of got with the one-off, this did seem, D, to me, like they are testing the waters. And you know, I'm also reading the room, right? You know, I saw Phil, Sarah, and Matt. They were kind of slouched in their chairs. They weren't upbeat. They did their best. I got to say, Phil did his best. But when you hear what they were the way they were portraying it, the last half of it was just a Game Pass ad. You know, cross save, cross play. You know, best games, first tier on Game Pass. They were definitely revitalizing the idea that Game Pass is not going away as of today. But D, when you start with 4 games and you're testing the waters, do you believe, D, that hypothetically, if this is a success, that eventually you'll see other games come 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road over to, I'm not even just saying PlayStation, I'm just going to say other platforms?
Yes, I think it's going to depend on the game. I think it's going to be games that make sense, games that naturally just feel like a multi-plat. I don't think we're going to be seeing Forza or Gears or Halo on the PlayStation, but like, you know, if Activision has like another new game coming out, it might be multi-plat. It might not just be exclusive. I think it's going to be a situation like that, because once again, they spent a lot of money in these companies, and these companies, before they were with Microsoft, they're based on releasing their games everywhere. So their revenue, their profits, their spending, everything is centered around that. So you can't just take all of these companies and say, yeah, all these games are now just going to be on this one platform, because they'd make less money. And if we know anything about these companies, they're in it to make money. But I can't rule out every single game. I can just pretty much say like the core games, I don't see those going to other platforms. But some of these games from these new studios, I don't know. It's going to be up in the air, man.
D, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I don't know if you saw the Destin interview with Tom Warren.
I did.
Yeah, so one of the things he said is, and I quote, "I know for a fact," quote, fact, that a big Xbox title is coming for PlayStation that will really surprise people. Can I just ask, what do you think that title will be? That was
already walked back. He actually said that interview was done before they got the news that it wasn't going to be Starfield. So it was referring to Starfield at that time. But to be honest with you though,
so my understanding is that the game he's talking about is not Starfield. So you're right, he did record it before the Starfield rumor, but only to say that the game he's talking about, double down, it's not Starfield.
Well, then it's not Starfield, but it's not one of the core games. It's just not. Now Starfield,
I believe it's Halo.
I think Starfield was in the discussion. I don't care what anybody wants to say. Oh no, this wasn't up for discussion. I think it was up for discussion, and I think the leak and the blowback that the leak got actually made them change course on it. I do believe that they were thinking about that. And I do believe that they were probably thinking about Indiana Jones too, because they're like, hey, these studios, we need to make our return. If we have it on Xbox, if we have it on PC, if we have it on PlayStation, we're going to make a lot of money. And, you know, I got to be honest with you guys. I don't care if it's Sony or Nintendo, Xbox, freaking whatever company, they don't really care about you. They just care about how much money they can get from you. So their goal is to make money. So they're looking at it from a business aspect, and then the fans are like getting really upset about it and kind of blocking to a certain degree what they want to do. Now, when throughout the interview, I did get the impression that they do understand the value of a console exclusive and that some games need to be a console exclusive, but they also feel that some games don't need to be a console exclusive. And I feel, and I said this in my video, I'm dropping it, I don't know, like an hour or so. I said it in my video that I believe that they should have been clear on this message and say, hey, listen, this and that and that and this is not going to make an appearance on the on other platforms. These are the core games that we know Xbox fans hold true and dear, and it's the identity of our console. However, you know, certain games from Activision that were in the works from before, certain games that make sense, we're going to look at it on a game per game basis. And I think gamers wouldn't be so upset. But at the end of the day, it's business, and you better believe your bottom dollar that Microsoft is in it to make money. And there's a lot of money to be made here. Like I know I don't want to jump topics, but I know Sony, you know, they're talking about going into the PC and being more aggressive, and you know, there's more profit that they can make there. And why were they releasing their games just on the PlayStation was to make the PlayStation popular. But you know, the industry is changing, and they need to grow and they need to expand, and they're going to PC now, and they're going to be more aggressive there. So you know, the industry is definitely changing, and all I'm going to say is that these companies, at the end of the day, they want to make money and they want to make more of it. And I think consoles, like the PlayStation, is still growing for sure because they're selling a lot of consoles. But in the big scheme of things, it's kind of plateaued there, right? And PC is the region where the growth is really happening. They're releasing their, like, what was that game that they just released on PC?
Pal World.
PlayStation.
Pal World.
Yeah.
You mean
not Pal World.
Helldivers too?
Helldivers?
Yeah, Helldivers is doing fantastic on PC. You know, it's a huge market, and I've said this so many times. PC gamers and console gamers are two different gamers. Yeah, some of them cross over a little bit, but for the most part, they're two separate groups. So why alienate that group of people? You know, get out there and sell your game. So I understand part of Microsoft's approach.
Let me go back one bit though, Dan, what you said. You said, you know, they're trying this out. They want to, you know, they were positive about the console. But the thing about it is right now the Xbox consoles, the X and the S, are not doing very well in sales, and they're tracking behind the Xbox One, which was arguably their worst generation. And you see Game Pass is, even with the inclusion of Xbox Live Gold to Game Pass Core, is only at 34 million. That number should have actually skyrocketed. That's not very good either. So when you see that number and you see that the sales of the console aren't moving, wouldn't you think that with all these games, Indiana Jones, Blade, all these things, if this does work with Sea of Thieves and this does work with Hi-Fi Rush, etc., Grounded, why wouldn't they continue to go down? That's the thing I would ask Phil if he was sitting here. I'd say, with these types of things in decline, why would you not want to do this if you're already putting your big toe in the pool?
They would. They would. I'm telling you, they're testing the waters. Just the core games, the core ones, they're gonna stay there. But and like maybe, you know, Activision will come with a new game, a new franchise, and it'll be exclusive to the platform. But for the most part, a lot of these studios that they acquired, they're going to be releasing these games on other platforms. Like, you know, taking off my Xbox hat here, you know, Indiana Jones, if it was on PlayStation and Xbox day and date, obviously they'd make a lot more money, right? Because now they have access to all of those millions of PlayStation gamers that aren't particularly going to go out and grab an Xbox, right? Some of them, sure, they'll get an Xbox for that game, or they'll get it on PC, but it's not going to be the same amount if you had it obviously on their platform, right? So they're going to have to weigh some of those things out, right? I think the best approach, personally, for both companies, I've said this for like Sony, you know, Sony, if they don't want to release their games day and date, do it staggered, like 3 months, 6 months. You'd make a hell of a lot more money than releasing it 2 years later when a lot of the hype and a lot of the spoilers of the game have come out. Microsoft, certain games, not the core games, you know, 6 months, a year, and then release it on other platforms. Like Hi-Fi Rush, we've had that for about 8 months. It's plateaued on the platform. There's not many more people getting that game. Most people have played it already. It's on PC. Why not open it up to the PlayStation? You had an advantage of it being on Xbox Game Pass, so we had it day and date. We had it 8 months early. Mostly everybody's played it. Why not let some other gamers enjoy it and Microsoft make more money on it, which will once again get reinvested into the ecosystem, into the games that Microsoft creates. So certain games, it makes sense. I can't understand everybody crying over it. Now, if Forza, Halo, these type of games came, then I can understand people being, upset about it, because that would be like Gears of War appearing on Xbox. It's just like unheard of. It's just ridiculous.
You mean God of War? But yeah, I know what you meant. Yeah,
God of War.
Yeah, God of War.
Let me say this. Everybody is caught in the weeds, and they don't understand what happened today, which is Microsoft just went third party, and everybody's caught up in what they're going to bring and not that they're bringing it. It reminds me of Mass Effect when you had evidence to expose Saren and not all the other stuff. It's like, well, it doesn't matter about the other stuff. Your goal at this point is to expose Saren. So the fact that they are now a third-party publisher, which confirms the rumors that, which they're already doing it a little bit. And at this point, it doesn't matter that it's 4 games. It doesn't matter what games they are. Those games are coming. I remember the day when Sony announced their sharing of Spider-Man with Marvel, and they put out some ridiculous statement about how the MCU is now part of Sony and stuff like that. It's like, look, however you want to spin it, you spin it, right? A lot of these rumors did turn out to be true. I think a lot of people, and I get it, and I said this the other day on my podcast, a lot of these PlayStation folks wanted their pound of flesh from the Xbox community for the bullshit that's come out of their mouth for the last decade. And so they were just twisting the knife. But I don't disagree with D. Indiana Jones was never going to come on PlayStation, not yet. Starfield is a possibility, and I do agree that, and I've been saying this, is the games that Microsoft has published, but they don't, but they didn't create, like Quantum Break and Ori. I think stuff like that will eventually come over. But at the end of the day, everybody's getting caught up in the weeds. The fact of the matter is they just became the biggest publisher in the world for games. And that's a good thing. I want to make that clear, because they could not, like Phil said, we can't out console Sony. And I'll just finish by saying that Sarah Vaughan that's a good looking woman.
I like that, Craig. All right, so Nib, let me get Nib his time here in the sun. Nib, you've got to have, geez, if you waited to tweet all the way till 7:00 Eastern time, you've probably got some kind of a War and Peace written. Nib, what do you think? I don't. What do you think about the situation? Because I think D made some really good points. I like where Craig went. Craig kind of says, I don't care if you're doing a half a game, 4 games, 15 games. You've entered third party at this point. Nib, where are you on this?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, when you've made that decision that you're willing to forego the incentive to your platform in order to withdraw more revenue from a competitor, you have already succumbed to that, that policy, so to speak. Again, like, maybe it's true, maybe they're going to see how these titles go in terms of sales before deciding anything further. But honestly, in my head, I think they've already decided, and they're just softening the blow. Because ports aren't made overnight. Like, these things can take time, especially larger titles and things like that. If what Tom Warren said is true, he knows for a fact a bigger title is coming that will surprise people, and he's alluding to that not being Starfield. Then there's other things on the card. I mean, we all have our connections. We all have sources. Obviously, some of these insiders, you don't know how much you can trust or how much you can't. But we hear murmurs. Let's put it that way. And I have the feeling that there are already things going on in the background. Beyond these four titles. But yeah, I think they've just once they've already come to terms with the fact that they are willing to put their exclusives on other platforms. I think it does open the gate, so to speak. And I think more titles will come inevitably.
Okay, so I'll ask the question that, I picked it up. I saw a couple people that joined me in the chat here before the show went live. They kind of said it before I did. And I was kind of glad other people saw. So this was a 22-minute, I think it was like 22 or 23-minute podcast that they kind of pre-recorded. Porter Rock, I'll ask you on this real quick. P-Rock, the last half of it was a Game Pass ad. They stopped talking about anything. We didn't get a whole lot. We got one line. We got one line on the future of their hardware, which was interesting. We'll get into that. That's a topic later on. But P-Rock, what did you think of the show? Well, they said, what did they say? The tech. They mentioned the tech was going to be like this extraordinary tech that we've never seen before, something of that nature.
They also alluded to something coming out this year as well.
Oh, that's the cloud shit.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, though, D? They were alluding to the tech being like this unbelievable, like, it's going to be groundbreaking tech in platform gaming. I don't know. To me personally, I like hearing stuff like that, but the last time we heard that stuff, you know, it was the Xbox One and it was, you know, the Kinect, and it was going to be hand motions and recognizing face, and we're not going there, but I'm saying, like, you know, this is probably going to be a handheld unit, right?
If you man, I'm saving it for my video, but I'll just say if you see the leak, that's an official leak that they uploaded by accident. It's actually in there, and it's going to be it's going to be something crazy. And also too, they were alluding to November that they're going to announce new hardware. Now there's new hardware coming out this year that was also in the leak. It's a new Xbox Series. Yeah, it's a new Series X, but apparently it's not more powerful. It's just like a die shrink, and so it's going to be more efficient, smaller. But you know, they could have hidden things too, so we don't know. But we do. It does appear that it's just a refresh, but we'll find out. But there is new hardware coming actually this year.
I will say with the whole, like, because we kind of actually had this during the Xbox One generation, right? We had the cloud compute. I can't remember because they kept changing the number. It was like, it's going to make it 6 times more powerful. It's going to make it 10 times more powerful. It's, you know, and I think based on the leaks, well, yeah, and based on the leaks, that's kind of where they're going with the new hardware. So I think when they say it's going to be the biggest console generation jump we've ever had, they're probably factoring the computational extras that the cloud performance, cloud, and I think AI algorithms and things.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry, but I was just going to say, but I don't know how that will translate literally into the game's performance that we have, especially because with cloud, there's always has to be variables where, you know, if you're running something natively or locally, you have to have a version of it that is not reliant on cloud compute. So, you know, there's a lot of things to discuss, including anyway, I don't want to go into the technical side of it, but but yeah, there are different types of rendering that you can do via the cloud, latency sensitive and latency non-sensitive. So there are going to be limitations to that, even though it's going to sound great on paper.
Yeah, I would think they would be having some type of GPUs in the cloud, and then when you're disconnected, you know, you would lose some of that performance. So you'd lose, I don't know, maybe some frame rate, you'd lose maybe some resolution. And when you're connected to the cloud, you'd have that back. I don't think we can laugh off cloud anymore.
We don't know.
I think in the beginning, a lot of people laughed off cloud because, you know, it just didn't make sense. And then Crackdown came out and that was like a big failure. But now when we see GeForce Now, we can't laugh that off, because GeForce Now, you can have the power of a 4080, and believe you me, the latency is, I'm not going to say there's no latency, but it's pretty damn good for what you're getting, especially for the visual fidelity that you're getting. So it's very interesting. We're going to have to wait and see what they really have cooking. But if anyone can make this type of innovation, it is Microsoft. So it is interesting for me.
So the big technical leap. So D, you said you're going to talk about it in your video, but you know, realistically, if it already leaked, so are we talking? Is it a handheld that's going to be working in that sense, or is it going to be actually a dedicated piece of hardware?
So the word is that it's going to be a piece of hardware, and there's also going to be a handheld, and that the handheld is going to have the same power as the hardware. That's the rumor. That wasn't in the leak. That's a rumor that's been circulating lately. In the leak, though, they said that they're going to use ARM processor, and you know, they're gonna use some other AMD stuff, and you know, whatever. I don't want to get all into it now, but basically, they're gonna go all out with this next console. It's gonna be powerful on, you know, by itself, but it's gonna be really augmented by the cloud.
So I got to ask BG, you know, You're a realist, dude. You're always like, give me the proof in the pudding. Actually, put the product in my hands. Let me play this and let me see. So BG, this is another time where, and I'm hearing D, and I'm not. I think D did a great job of explaining it. BG, when you hear what D's saying, and Microsoft's again going to try to jump into the future and say this is something, and I agree. GeForce Now. Others have done this. The technology's there. People are using it, and it works to a certain extent. Is this Microsoft again trying to, put their lasso to that star and rope it in and get something before it becomes big and be that big thing out there? Or is this another thing that just won't catch on in everyday households?
I mean, it's I don't really understand their approach when it comes to hardware, because they always try to make, I guess, or claim it's cutting edge hardware, but seem to also do everything in their power to make sure people don't buy it. So it's like, why go through all that R&D, all this effort, and then you literally it's not even giving people a reason, not a reason to buy it. It's like you use so many words to tell people you don't have to or you shouldn't buy this. So it's just a very strange approach. And I just, I don't really think I get, like, hardware is important. You should continue to make it, because we're not at the point yet. I think Microsoft is always too far ahead of the curve when it comes to some of their stuff.
Right.
Like they are not the ones that should be doing certain things first. I think they hurt themselves by doing certain things first. A lot of the times you're not the benefactor if you create something or if you do something first. That's a lot of the times you're the one who suffers, and then somebody else comes along and really benefits from it, because the audience and the consumers were not ready for that type of change. And Microsoft is always trying to jump ahead, and is like we appreciate you, but you're also going to suffer for this.
BG, I had somebody who's very close to me, a good friend of mine. He's in the tech business. This is back in 2008, so it has nothing to do with our conversation tonight. But he said something, and he said it's not always who gets there first in the tech world; it's who does it best. And that's what the consumer acknowledges, and that's what they buy. I got a couple super chats here. Shout out to Philip, who says, crappy little Xbox games. He admitted the quality. So shout out to Philip. I appreciate that. The great Jimmy Harris, he says, shout out to all my brothers in the panel. Much love. Jimmy, thanks for being here. M's Odyssey, shout out to M. Day and date Game Pass equals death of Xbox. Needs to stop. I wonder if that will end up happening. And shout out to Liquid.T. I believe that. I really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, guys. Please do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. J-Dub, big J-Dub, I got to ask Jay. Jay, you've heard the panel here, okay? And, you know, this is a situation where, I'm just taking back what I saw on the podcast and what I heard. I thought we were going to get a little bit more. I really did. And Phil did what Phil does best, right? He came out there and he's like, for all of you guys thinking Starfield and Indiana Jones is, the dam's not going to open. That's not happening. And then later on, he's like, I never want to say nothing is out of bounds. So it's like, a lot of stepping over what they said. Phil did it. I think Matt Booty even did it a couple of times, stepping over some of the things Phil said. What did you pick up from what you heard today, Jay? And you've heard the panel.
Well, I'll tell you what I picked up is these guys still don't know what the fuck they want to do. They're still trying to figure it out. That's basically what it is. They're running in rover mode. Apparently, they don't know who's in charge. They don't know where they want to be. None of this stuff pretty much benefits anybody but PlayStation and Nintendo gamers. So if you're an Xbox console gamer, none of this stuff benefited you. And I'm like, when is Microsoft going to do something for the Xbox console owner to benefit him? They're worrying about mobile cloud, they're worrying about cloud, they're worrying about Samsung TVs, they're worrying about all these customers, including PlayStation, Nintendo. But the people who consistently get the short end of the stick is the Xbox console gamer. Neither one of them said we're going to do this specifically for the Xbox console game. And I know the fan base, a lot of people in the fan base don't care. Right? They don't care. They at this point, they've been losing for the last 10 years. They're just glad to even be, just be here. And to know that they have another console or whatever there. But I did notice that we wasted 20 minutes of our time. They could have literally tweeted the stuff that they had to say.
Yeah.
They said, well, we've always been looking at this and that and worrying about stuff that is like so far off. These guys hadn't even gotten the basic necessity of making a decent game consecutively yet. Yet they're worrying about other things that they're worrying about a crowd that doesn't exist. I think there's not a crowd out there that's looking forward to playing in the cloud and playing all that stuff. Nobody's asking for that. Nobody's there. There's nobody there. And I know they say that they love to grow gaming and grow this. How about you try to just get people to buy the number of consoles that you sold last generation? Focus on that first. Because right now the Xbox Series consoles, 2 next generation or current generation consoles, are losing to the most worst console ever made back then, last generation. So I don't know. Right now I think they're just running Rover. Phil came out and do what he always does. And he spins things and he double speaks and he gives himself out. This is why the things that he said on the podcast, he didn't mention it until after, when he was followed up with questions by Tom Warren and the rest of those journalists when they asked him those questions and backed him into the wall.
Yep.
He spoke, he gave himself out. Well, I can't never say, Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't going to PS5. I won't say, it's like, yeah, but you just did a pre-rehearsed podcast and you mentioned those specific games. But here you are giving yourself an out later. So I think from here on out, we can just assume that all of these games are eventually coming to PlayStation, Nintendo. Whether it's listen, can you tell me it's not?
Yes, I can.
Based on what Phil said.
Definitely, he said all of them are not coming. I can't rule out which ones are coming, but for sure, all of them are not coming. Come on, just common sense tells you that much.
He said the same thing with PC in 2016.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, people gotta stop, man. I can't take it no more. Listen.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? When all of the hold on, right here. The day that all of their exclusives come, I'll give you $100 in cash, Puerto Rock.
No, you don't know.
No, we're not doing that again because you're just gonna give me Game Pass code. Let me say my piece.
That's like a wet pony dream.
Let me say my piece. I don't understand the confusion because literally Tim Stewart already said this last year, but everybody ignored it and tried to change his words and say, "Oh no, he's only talking about ABK." Satya, in front of his own shareholders in the annual meeting, he said we now have the ability to make games for Xbox and consoles. People ignored that, saying, "Oh no, he's talking about ABK," even though the question specifically asked was about the future of Xbox, not the future of ABK, the future of Xbox, and he answered it. It's an easy thing. Listen, they're done. Microsoft is done with the whole console war. They're still going to make consoles, right? They're still going to make consoles. These are the first 4. And we talked about it, Mooch, on our podcast. I talked about it on Blaze podcast. The only thing stopping more games coming, the only decision factor is resource management. That is it.
Absolutely.
These first 4 are coming because 2 of them are easy to port and you can put them on the Switch. The other 2, you can put them on the Switch. I get what you're saying about the whole 30 party and it makes sense, but that doesn't apply to Rare. Rare was acquired back in 2002. They were one of the original developers for the OG Xbox, and they have never made a PlayStation game ever. So you can't use that logic on them because they never relied on PlayStation.
But that game makes sense. That game definitely makes sense.
But look what you're doing now. It's this game makes sense. Like that's not a listen. And I said this to Mooch. Mooch, I asked you.
See if these is not tied up with Xbox identity like Halo, like Gears, like Forza, like Fable. No way.
But let me ask you this. What business strategy can you convince shareholders, investors to say, "Hey, this is our strategy. We're going to put certain games on PlayStation and Nintendo, but we're not going to put other games." And they're going to ask why. Because they're tentpole franchises? What does that mean to a shareholder? They're going to ask, talk to me of money. What does that mean?
Because they need to still sell hardware, right? So we know that there's going to be
it now.
We know there's okay. Hold on. We know that there's going to be another console coming. So that there alone should tell you just common logic that there's going to still be some exclusives, because if you don't have any exclusives, you're not going to sell any consoles, period, right? So common sense should say that. Okay. Number 2, a reason how they can get over this hump is if you make a system that is substantially more powerful, has better features, better looking graphics.
X does that already.
Hold on a second. Better by by a substantial amount, gamers are fickle. They will go to it. Now, with the Xbox Series X, they touted, mesh shaders. We found out recently, I did a video, Xbox guys got mad at me, that the PlayStation is able to do mesh shaders. When you look at the PlayStation and the Xbox Series X, when you do all the comparisons, they're pretty much neck and neck. Some games, Xbox has a better frame rate. Some games, the PlayStation has a better frame rate. Some games, Xbox has higher resolution in that game, but the PlayStation 5 has better frame rates, or it's not stuttering or something. They're pretty much neck and neck. But if you have a system that there is a distinctive difference over the other system, gamers are fickle. They will go to it. So if Microsoft wants to push their Game Pass, if they want to push their games, they have to literally have the best hardware by a mile. And this generation should be a lesson to them, because they touted it being substantially better than the PlayStation 5. And in practice, they're pretty much neck and neck.
I don't want to.
So let me. Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold on. Because this is where I said the business strategy don't make sense. You said common sense.
Let me just say this 1 second. And
oh my God, bro! I
just gotta say this. Just common sense tells you that not all of their games are coming. You're talking with a fanboy hat on right now.
Cool. So let's talk common sense. Common sense. Speak to me in business. How it makes sense to say we're gonna sell consoles by removing exclusives. If you couldn't sell consoles with all exclusives, you're gonna do it with some.
Listen, they are selling consoles. They are selling tons of consoles. They're just not selling at the rate that Sony is selling. Are you kidding me? There's how many Xbox Series X's are out there? How many?
23 million?
You think there's 23 million Xboxes out there? There's more than that.
No, there's only 23.
Think about what you just said. Common sense. You're telling me, think about what you said. You said common sense. You're telling me the common sense approach is we're going to worry about selling consoles with less exclusives. We couldn't do it with all. Think about it. If you're putting exclusives to PlayStation, you're taking away exclusives. That's how you sell consoles.
These games these games that are on trial that are going over to PlayStation, these are not big games. They're not big games.
We don't know.
They're not big games.
They
listen. Okay. So until a big game comes over there, that's an exclusive. We can't have that conversation.
Listen, yes, we can, because the decision's done. It's already done.
So then, where's the game? Where's the AAA first party game?
Bro, you can't do it all over in one night.
But where
you can't do it?
And until that game comes, we can't have this conversation. It's all speculation.
All right. So listen. Think about what you're saying. It's not speculation.
It is speculation because no AAA exclusive has been released on another platform.
The CEO and Satya already
speculating that Gears and Forza will come.
There is no speculation. The bosses already told
speculation.
You guys are just holding on to this weird thing.
I have common sense. I have common sense to know that some games are not going to be exclusive. To sit there and to think all of their games are going to go is come on.
Hold on.
Do you think Starfield will eventually go?
I think Starfield might. I think Starfield might. Yes, I think it might.
Listen, you are doing something that not even Phil is doing. Even he won't commit.
You can say whatever you want. It's true. Listen, I can't do the fanboy hat talk. I just can't do it. Sorry.
Fanboy hat, bro. Satya said it. Tim Stewart said it. Phil won't commit.
We had Phil Spencer today.
Absolutely ridiculous.
We had Phil Spencer today announcing 4 small titles.
Okay, and what you want?
Trying to do like a victory lap, like Gears of War or Forza or Halo was announced for the PlayStation. Like, come on, what are we doing here?
So hold up. So your logic is lack of announcement means no announcement. This is ridiculous.
You can think what you want. I think differently, and we're just gonna have to agree to disagree, brother.
And you're gonna take the L. For no reason.
Whatever you say.
Absolutely no reason.
Whatever you say.
Brap, I want to get Brap and BG. Yeah, I just want to say that we've had people, and BG, you've been on. Everyone on this panel's been on the show a number of times. Now, D, I'm not, like I said, I think you made some points. I think Porter Rock made some points, but I have said a number of times my feelings on Sea of Thieves. and everybody that's ever been a guest on this show comes on and tells me how successful and how big Sea of Thieves is, especially since it was a Twitch phenomenon. So we can't do this. We can't have it where we say this is a big game, then it goes over, and we're like, that's actually a really tiny game. That's not a small game. That's a game that's how many developers are at Rare working on this thing? 250, 300 people. They've expanded. They're a big company.
Rare was one of the original developers.
All right, let's end this debate right now. Do you see Sea of Thieves as a AAA title? Do you see Sea of Thieves as a AAA title?
Yes.
I used to say it was. Yes.
Do you see Sea of Thieves as a AAA title? Yes or no?
Yeah, it is.
It's not a AAA title.
It had like
there we go. There it is.
No, D, this is not about. Listen, this is not about.
First of all, I'm not a fan of Sea of Thieves, so that's cap. And number two, nobody said that game is a AAA game. Come on, we're getting silly now.
Listen,
was it a successful game? Sure. It's an uber successful game.
That's what's weird.
They generate a lot of. They generate. Hold on. It's an uber successful game. They generate a lot of revenue from it. However, it is not a AAA game.
Well, here's the thing.
How much did it cost?
I'm telling you, man. I don't listen. I don't understand why you guys add caveats that Microsoft is not even saying. You are saying things they are not saying.
Until a triple A first party exclusive hits the PlayStation 5, you have no evidence saying that all other AAA games are going to come. When one AAA game comes, then maybe you can speculate a little bit. Until then, I'm sorry.
Hold up. Last year, this wasn't a standard. Last year, it was only ABK games. Now, it's it's got to be triple.
Did I say that? I never said that.
I bet you I can find some. I guarantee.
I didn't say that. I definitely didn't say that.
So guys,
I guarantee. Last year,
I've been at war with Xbox fans, so that's not true.
This is what's hilarious. Last year, they're only talking about ABK. Satya, he's only talking about ABK. Now it's only smaller. Like the parameters changing. But the funny thing is, you are creating the parameters.
No. You're trying to create. You're trying to create a narrative. I said earlier when I started off the. Can I speak now? When I started off the show, I said that some exclusives are going to reach other platforms. I said I can't rule out Starfield. Starfield may come in a year. You are taking this argument now and saying all of the exclusives are coming, and that's just absolutely ridiculous.
All of it. It comes down to
in your wet 12-year-old dream. Okay.
Listen. But Bo, I'll be more than happy to take your $100 again. You want to play with me? Let's play.
I already put it on the air. $100. All of their games are not going to PlayStation.
Okay,
it's on air.
So
cash, no vouchers.
Right. Okay. Then just talk to yourself about that. That's you. Talk in the mirror about vouchers. That's a you thing.
Why?
It's
over. I want to get BG and Brap in here too. Go ahead, Craig, and I want to get Brap.
No, go ahead, Brap.
Yeah, I was gonna say real fast that you see how it's about what games are coming, and they have not said what games are coming, and that's where everything's getting hung up. The key is that I mean, look, nobody can say what game is coming, and all AAA means is the budget, and see if these budget. Since it's been out, would accrue to that level. However, if it's going to be about, it's not Gears, it's not Halo, they've not yet said what is coming. My point at the beginning was games are coming, and that's how everything got taken into the weeds with what games versus people just saying, yeah, look, they're doing this, so a lot of the leaks were correct. I mean, look, I've listened to both Porter Rock and D. My only thing about it is that if we can't say what games are coming yet, because nobody has said anything, so D is right. We don't know what's coming. However, Porter Rock's point, everybody up on that stage reports to Satya Nadella. He is the king of kings over there. Phil Spencer is not. So Phil Spencer's check is signed by Satya Nadella. If he wants it, on all platforms, it's gonna happen. So that's where we're that's where things are right now. I mean, we could get into the weeds if you want to, and this is gonna go and that's gonna go. Okay, let's just say it does go. If Satya, who signs everybody's checks, the hell with that. He signs your check. If he pulls Phil in the office and Tim Stewart in the office. These are the Microsoft employees that says, how are we going to get this? How do we get our money back? So to speak, like D, you were mentioning this, how much money they spent, and the freaking CFO says, here's a plan to get it back. It's coming. So, but I would just me personally, let me make this about myself now. This is why I don't report on the rumors and stuff like that, because we just don't have a clear enough picture on what's coming. We just know that stuff is
well,
coming.
this is the thing.
Grounded.
Today's show was definitely up for interpretation. Go ahead, Brap. I want to get your take, and I want to get Dutch and BG as well.
Yeah, the thing I was going to say is, I look, for those who don't know, I was an Xbox Live beta tester.
Oh, get out of here.
Xbox Live.
No way.
Yeah. I've been on the Xbox platform for 23 years. And over that period of time, I've seen the natural progression to where we are today. And I think, honestly, I mean, obviously we don't know what specific games are going to be coming out. The Halo thing wouldn't surprise me because of what Phil said about creating thriving communities on platforms, video games. So that's why that game might make sense going elsewhere. But at the end of the day, there's clearly a pivot here, and I think that the Verge interview was very telling, even more so than I think the
podcast.
The podcast. Yeah, like I think Phil is really he's leaving the door open for opportunities for them to go take their game, and that could be look, as much as people don't want to, I can certainly understand the argument of you wouldn't take Gears or Forza because your brand's tied to it's part of your identity as a brand, and you want to have exclusives to sell consoles. But the fact of the matter is they're not really selling consoles right now. They're about 23 million Xbox Series consoles. The only reason we know that is because Take-Two and their last financial report, Strauss Zelnick said there's about 70-something million Gen 9 consoles out. We know what PlayStation 5 has sold, so they've given us that number. You do the subtraction, and you get to the math of the 22 million Xbox Series consoles. Microsoft's almost down 3-1 in consoles. That's worse than they were last generation. So they're actually, and you look at where they're tracking like they're seeing negative console growth like every quarter. And so at that point, like as a business, you're losing about $100-$200 on a console sold. PlayStation 5 is just going to hit the break-even point on their consoles. I mean, so at some point, as a company, like the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and that's probably a real conversation. Let me finish. Obviously, they're coming out with hardware next generation, but this is also Microsoft. They're not a hardware company, and maybe there's an argument to be had where they may keep manufacturing Xbox hardware as kind of a boutique type of product, which they kind of do with the Surface tablets. But they do have a history of looking at businesses that are underperforming, like hardware, like the Zune, the Windows Phone, the PC tablets or Power, whatever they had back in the days. And so, like, I think that's a fair conversation to have. But I do think, in regard to Sea of Thieves, by the way, if you go to the Sea of Thieves fact sheet, they actually cite under the bullet point of an evolving experience, and this is from the Sea of Thieves fact sheet. It says players are already falling. And this is August in 2017 when this was released. It says players are already falling in love with Sea of Thieves thanks to its technical alpha program. It's a unique approach to AAA game development that continues to shape the game through community insights and feedback to make sure players get the experience they want. So Microsoft 2017 is already saying it's a AAA game. This is look, again, we don't know what specific games are coming out, but Phil does leave this thing open to interpretation. I think what he says, I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out any game going to any other platform. That's telling. And then you think about the verbiage coming out of the C-suite, the word tracks. Satya Nadella does not like exclusives. Microsoft, their core competency as an organization is software as a service. And I think that's where Xbox is going to be pivoting. They didn't rip the Band-Aid off, but I think the writing's on the wall. Yeah. Based on if you look at their behavior the last 10 years and how they really kind of accelerated. Remember, it started. Yeah. Hey, Mooch, God bless Crap Gamer. Remember Crap getting mad at Phil Spencer for bringing Quantum Break to PC? Yeah. It started there. Fast forward 10 years, and you see the acceleration. It's not going to surprise me. And I understand the argument of where they're going to need exclusives to sell hardware. I think the exclusive for them now is day and date in Game Pass. That's the value proposition now.
That I will say that is a huge value proposition as an Xbox gamer, because I get my games day and date on my Xbox. I get them on my PC, and I'm not leaving Game Pass anytime soon. So I do see that. I think they made a few mistakes this generation with the hardware. I think the problem this generation, I've never been clouded on this, is the Series S. The Series S is the most popular Xbox. It's more popular than the Series X. It sells way more, and a lot of people have that console. But then when you compare that console, which most of the Xbox gamers have this generation, to the PlayStation 5, it gets eviscerated. And then in my country, in Canada, the PlayStation 5 right now, I think it's like $650 or something like that with a game. And the Xbox is like it's priced more in my country than the PlayStation. And I know some other regions it is. And then I know some regions in the States it's like priced, the same or maybe like $10 less. And that doesn't bode well for Xbox. However, 23 million consoles sold is still a lot. It's just not as much as Sony. So it's not like, oh my God, they sold like 5 million consoles. Now, if they were not making a next generation console, which they confirmed today, then I would say, okay, they're not going to have any exclusives. Sure, they're getting out of the market. But the fact that they are going to have another console generation, I truly believe that that's going to be the console generation that makes or breaks. If that console generation, they're still getting outsold by Sony, nobody's buying that console, nobody's buying those games, I think at that point in time, that's when they would start to look at doing things differently. At this point in time, I don't think so. I think it's going to be a game per game basis. No, I don't think all of the exclusives are going to stay on Xbox. I told you, a lot of these companies are third-party companies. Some of these games, they're going to show up on other platforms. But the value for the Xbox gamer is Game Pass, having it day and date, having it in your subscription service, and that's a substantial saving within itself.
And D,
by the way, I don't agree that 23 million is a lot. I mean, it's a big number, but a lot compared to where they were tracking. They're tracking behind the Xbox One now.
Yes,
and Xbox One's their worst generation. Like, that's not the kind of growth that you want to see as a console manufacturer.
Exactly.
You also don't want to see negative growth, consistent quarters. That's a problem. That means that the consumer's sending the demand signal of, we don't want your console.
Yeah, Mooch, I was going to piggyback off of that, actually, what Brap was saying. And I think this is probably where I think it stemmed from, this whole like pivot in strategy. About a quarter or two ago, when Game Pass failed to hit their annual targets for the third year in a row, and Satya Nadella's bonus 3 years in a row, and his bonus package is directly tied. I think he lost like 12 million or something from his bonus personally because they failed to hit that, and that happened 3 years in a row. And the thing is, like, okay, so you've succumbed to the fact that you're willing to sacrifice console growth in order to grow Game Pass. But I think the most eye-opening thing about this whole show was actually the 34 million number, right? Because one of the things that the FTC leaks showed was that there was 11.7 million Xbox Live Gold subscribers in 2022. 11.7 million plus the 25 million is what, like 37 million, right? But they announced 34 million. So either Game Pass, Xbox Live Gold diminished even more in that time, which is possible, or Game Pass itself subtracted in growth. And if either way, it means that since January 2022, they've had complete stagnation. So not only did they not grow to the amount that they anticipated or wanted, which, by the way, was 44 million Game Pass subscribers by 2030. That's what their internal projections show from the leaks. Not only did they fail to meet that, they actually didn't grow at all 2 years in a row. So what that tells us is you put all your eggs in the Game Pass basket, and Game Pass didn't move. So not only have you cannibalized your console market share, you're also, the thing that you've been championing is not moving. So that's why now we're in the situation where we are, where other drastic strategies are being taken.
This year, though, they did make...
It's not just Game Pass. Matt Pittsburgh said that all subscription gaming subscription services have flatlined, and at least in the US.
Exactly.
It's not just Game Pass. It's PlayStation. Exactly. Even Apple, their arcade subscription flatlined. Yep. All of it combined flatline and only makes up 10% of the gaming industry revenue. Exactly. So that's a low number. So including PlayStation.
PlayStation.
Everyone,
exactly.
Everyone's flatlining subscription. He says it's not moving. He says, and he even said, I know you guys are fanning the flames, but this model is not being supported as the future of gaming. It flatlined across everybody. Think of everybody that's in gaming. And when I found out it included Apple, like even Apple, their shit is flatlining in terms of script. So EA Play, Ubisoft, everything, right? Now, here's the thing. The thing I'm trying to say is the decision for games is not going to be based on console. I'm sorry, D, but the console war is over. Phil and that staff and Satya, they're not going to fight a console war with PlayStation. They're done with that. It's over. They're not going to do that. All right. Right now, they're going to take the Surface tablet mentality is they'll still make hardware, but guess what? Every other tablet had the same access to every software that the Surface tablet had. They did not keep anything exclusive away from any other tablet, even though they were making their own. Right?
The console, the Windows Phone too, by the way.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And the console, 2 generations. This isn't baseball. You're not going to get a third strike. The shareholders are not going to try to hear that. Like, hey, let's give it one more college try. They just invested $70 billion plus another $6 billion, $7 billion Bethesda. Shareholders are not trying to hear that nonsense of let's give it one more try, but this time with less exclusives or tempo exclusives.
See,
they're not trying to hear that nonsense. That's not fanboying.
This is where you lose me. I believe that some exclusives will come because the model it just requires for them to make their money back. All exclusives, no, just all of them are not going to happen. Maybe more some than what Xbox fans would want. Sure, all no way, it's not happening.
The decisions. Wait, hold up. The decision's going to come down to resource management. What studios do I always think Game Pass supported platforms will be always the priority? I absolutely do. There are some studios Microsoft have that will not, you know what I'm saying, it's going to take them time to port games to PlayStation, Nintendo. Some games, depending on, like, for example, the 4 games, if you notice everything's in common, the one thing that those 4 games have in common is they are also be able to be on Nintendo. So it has to be a game where both games can run. So obviously Starfield's not going to run on the Switch, right? And then also Indiana Jones, probably not going to run on the Switch. Those games, most likely, they're probably sitting back and waiting on the Switch 2 specs to see if that platform can handle those games. But I think Game Pass will always be the priority. And you heard them. The one thing that the console offers is that Game Pass value. So if you don't want to pay $70 for these games, you want games day and day, you just want to stick to subscription service, there's only one console, and they even mentioned it. The only console that can do that is Game Pass. And I even mentioned that on a couple of my podcasts, a couple of times, that when people say, what's the point of Xbox if all the games end up going to PlayStation anyway? I said, Xbox is still the only way for a console gamer to have a subscription service with day-and-day games. Sony does not offer that. Nintendo does not offer that. And I told them there's going to be guys, because everybody thinks there's going to be a mass exodus. They're not. I do not believe that now the entire Xbox guys are now all about paying $70. They're not. They're going to stay. They're going to enjoy that $70. And whether or not it's on another platform doesn't matter to them because they're only paying $15 a month. That's all they care about. So you're not going to have this mass exodus. And then when people are saying the consoles is done, I'm like, no, they have to make another console because where are 15, 20 million Game Pass gamers going to go? You cannot force those gamers to PC. You cannot force those gamers to cloud on Samsung. You can't do that. So you risk losing all those guys thinking you're going to force them. Oh, because of Game Pass, they're going to play on PC. Oh, because of Game Pass, they're going to play on cloud. No, that's not how it works. You have to still cater to them. So right now you have a group of gamers that like to play on consoles and they want to play on Game Pass because they don't want to pay $70 no more. They're more than happy with the immense amount of content in games that Game Pass has. Sure, some of us don't agree with that, but it's not about us or whether we agree. It's what they want. Microsoft is catering to that audience. Let me bring this up. The problem that they're having is growing that audience at a significant rate. That's the issue. That
Porter Rock, hear me out. Here's the other issue I kind of want to bring up that may get overlooked tonight if I don't bring it up. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Mooch, real quick, you sound kind of low in my. I don't know if everyone
is it
else,
low?
But...
Am I
yeah,
low?
very low.
Yeah, you sound like far away.
Maybe that's
for you, Mooch.
Hold on, give me 1 second, guys. I do want to bring this up as I talk low. I'll fix that in 1 second. I bet that helps. Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So
you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. So here's the point I want to make, though. Phil and Satya, and everybody knows this. Nothing I'm going to say in this immediate part is shocking to you guys. But they came to a conclusion of Game Pass. Game Pass is the identity for Xbox now. That's why we talk about handheld. We're talking about another Xbox. We're talking about this. I think Porter Rock did a good job of explaining Game Pass and why there will be more hardware coming down Xbox. But the one thing that Phil said when he was asked about Helldivers, also in that interview, This is Phil's quote. I will say, when I look at a game like Helldivers 2, and it's a great game, kudos to the team shipping on PC and PlayStation, I'm not exactly sure who it helps in the industry by not being on Xbox. If you try to twist yourself to say, like, somehow that benefits somebody somewhere. The one thing that you have to understand, this is not Phil being disconnected and not understanding. Phil's very, very intelligent. He knows what he's saying. The thing is he's in bed with the Game Pass motto now, subscription-based build. Let me answer Phil's question. Who benefits from this? Sony. And this is something I said on Porter Rock Show on Tuesday night. Sony wants to sell you the console. They want to sell you the VR, the headsets, the earbuds, the Edge. They want to sell you all these accessories. That is who is interested in keeping this to a specific platform and not putting it on other platforms, a PC being the alternate. But they don't want that on Xbox. They want you to buy a PlayStation. So if this Helldivers is out there, let's say there's an Xbox fan out there right now seeing all this. I mean, Helldivers has been all over social media for the better part of over a week now. Okay, and it's getting rave reviews.
It was on CNN.
People are right, so people are legitimately going out now. Maybe somebody's going to go buy a PlayStation, pick up this game. What are they going to do? Maybe pick up the new headset that comes out next week. That's Sony's looking at the grand scheme of things. So when Phil says, shouldn't it benefit gamers if a game is everywhere? Well, hypothetically, in your realm and what you pitched to Satya and what you guys are running down the aisle with, but that's not the same to say for Nintendo. It's not the same for Sony. It's just not. So it's not that he has his blinders on, but when Phil speaks now, you have to understand, you're not just listening to somebody. He is literally giving you a pitch because that's the pitch that is his job. Yes. That's his job and that's his MO. That's what he's going to retire with. It will say Phil Spencer, Game Pass. That's how it's going to go down. Games everywhere. He said, how many times did he say during the interview today?
I was just going to add to that quickly. I would actually say it also benefits consumers, right? The people who buy the game. And what I mean by that is, I think sometimes it's weird. People have this perception that ports just get made with a click of a finger, like they don't take time, resources, testing, QA, development, engine optimization, etc. So if Arrowhead say they're 140 employees, right? If you add Xbox into the mix as a platform, plus by virtue the Series S, which has its own, optimization limitations or issues or whatever, including memory and all sorts of things, suddenly you take, 30, 40, whatever devs onto a port instead of content curation and optimization for fewer platforms. So the actual development itself suffers, right? That's why we have so many developers who say exclusivity actually has benefits for us developers as well, because we can spend more time on content curation. We can spend more time maximizing optimization focus for specific fixed hardware instead of multiples of hardware. So it's not just the benefit to Sony, it's actually benefit to consumers. You basically get a more curated and better product. And the only alternative to that is if they expanded enough to do wider port, but they'd still always have the Series S as the albatross, so there are other benefits.
That's a very good point. They really get to utilize the intentions of the platform and really squeeze everything they can out of the PS5. And BG,
exactly.
The reason I asked BG this question is, BG, you did a lot of streams with PlayStation VR 2, etc. And regardless of your thoughts, and you can give your thoughts on PSVR 2 and how you feel that's been. But the point of the matter is that if you bought an Xbox Series X, which I did, right? But that was it. That was the last thing I bought. For PlayStation, I've bought the VR, I've bought the Portal, I have the Edge, which is their version of the Pro controller. I mean, there's other accessories out there, and games are what elude you to continue to invest in that ecosystem, BG. And I think that's one of the things that I don't think, again, I want to say this, Phil's not missing this, but Phil's not preaching it because that just doesn't go along with his business narrative.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the PlayStation, ecosystem, it's very much a web between hardware, software, like you said, it gets people entangled into buying the different parts of it. And Phil speaks from the viewpoint of how his audience behaves, I believe. Because, I don't, people think I'm always trying to insult Game Pass, but Game Pass is just representative of subscription services. And as a whole, I don't think the industry, consumers, want subscription services for Game Pass. The people think that saving a few dollars is like this all-encompassing and alluring thing. Most people don't care, honestly. I think most people would rather just pay something one time forget about it and not have to go through a subscription service. It's really not that big of a deal. So that's why I think like he looks at it as, why would you want to pay for this game, like for Helldivers, for example, $40 a pop? Because his audience, they've kind of indoctrinated them into being used to that, getting something in a subscription service. But that's Xbox audience specifically who are like used to that type of thing. The rest of the industry as a whole is still very much used to and adjusted to paying for games. So that's like, so it's very weird when they look at everybody else who's weird that you're paying for games, when no, you're the minority. You're the weird one here. We're not weird. And I don't mean weird as like it's bad, like Game Pass is bad. I mean weird as you're the odd one out. So the rest of the industry and consumers show like, yo, we'll pay for games. That's okay. Look at Helldivers' success. People bought that. It's okay. We'll buy that. No problem. And as far as like with the games, going back to like the 4 games, I think 4 games is a strange number for a sample.
Yeah.
If you're testing something out, you start up with 1, maybe 2. 4?
Yeah.
4 that's a big sample. You know what I'm saying? And I do agree with.
It's not 4 either.
And they refuse to tell you which 4 they are to start with.
I do agree with D-Batch that.
I think it's because of they want to introduce it, they want to advertise it. We got to give the developers their due, though. So I agree. I see why he didn't want to mention the 4, because they're gonna roll it out like every other game. It's gonna be a nice trailer. And now on PS5, now you can play
Nintendo Direct or something. Give them a chance.
You know what I'm saying? Like what place? It's they're just gonna unveil it, and he's respecting developers. He doesn't want to unveil the games like this.
Yeah, it's actually 5 games, by the way, because As Dust Falls is actually coming in March, I believe. So it's
coming in March.
As Dust Falls, which is a Microsoft owned IP.
You can pre-order it right now on PS5.
Let Broken Gamer finish his thought.
Let BG finish.
I'm just saying. I do agree with D-Batch that I've been saying this for weeks. I don't think these games are necessarily a big deal. It's the implications of these games, right? What the future could mean. Because like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, which the other 2 rumored ones, all these we're guessing Sea of Thieves. Like Sea of Thieves is the most successful one out of all of them. But overall, like these aren't like the biggest, tentpole pillar Xbox games, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what he said. He said these are games that reach their full potential on Xbox, that probably have way more. Well, he didn't say way more potential, but you could read between the lines, that could go to a bigger audience on Nintendo and PlayStation. They're a year old, maybe multiplayer. Put them on other platforms to validate the sequel. So there's a criteria he's looking at, and if these other games, it's just 4 games now, but if other games fit into that criteria that he's talking about, it will be more. Like it's hard for me to imagine Halo on PlayStation. I'm not saying it can never happen, but it's hard to imagine.
That's the question I want to ask you, BG. Wouldn't Halo Infinite fall on that, right? Didn't it reach its life?
It would.
Because it's not getting bigger.
Halo and Gears have both, like, from their popularity, they're fallen far from that. Yeah. So
technically, Halo will fall under that description.
And Forza 2.
It's just hard for me to imagine them doing that. So it's more about my imagination than it is about anything else. But if I agree with D-Batch that it's hard to see it, but I don't think it's impossible. But it's so confusing. Their whole messaging is confusing. Exclusives are important, but putting everything everywhere else is also important.
Their strategy, exactly. That drives me crazy.
And it's like, and then it's like, okay, why would you make Helldivers exclusive, but we're keeping our exclusives that are important? Right. I don't understand. I don't understand the messaging.
That was a whole crazy thing. Like the first 5 minutes, he describes about how we're going to keep these games. Not everything's coming to the platforms. It's only these 4 games. And then the next 25 minutes of the show, they all talk about how bring your saves with you. Our vision is to bring our games everywhere, more people to play. And it's like you're both sides of the road, and that's always been that's always been their issue. It's been messaging.
I think I think the industry is heading in another direction. Phil said something really.
The industry.
important.
D. 1 second. The industry didn't have a emergency podcast today. Like it was
Can I finish my thought, though?
business update.
I understand.
This wasn't an industry update. Okay,
like I was saying, I believe the industry is going in another direction because you have Xbox. You know, Phil Spencer said, "Listen, in 10 years, you know, I see a place where exclusives don't matter as much." You have Sony's president coming out and saying, "Listen, we made exclusives so that it would make our console popular, but in order for us to grow, we have to kind of change that mentality and release our games other places." So I think exclusives matter for sure, and I think exclusives are still going to be a thing. But I think we're going to see over the years that certain games are going to make an appearance after a certain amount of time on other platforms. I think these guys are just looking at all the money that they can be making, and where it makes sense, I think both of these companies are going to do it.
My other thing too is that, you know, if you look at where Microsoft is right now, their games are everywhere. These 4 games that they're saying may go over, they're going to go over to other platforms, which, by the way, they never even said Nintendo and PlayStation during their show. They always just said other platforms. But if you look at where they are now, they are everywhere. They're on every PC that you own. They're on every portable PC, every laptop, every Android phone, every iPhone, every Samsung TVs for the last 2 years, a Meta Quest. They have their game on every device now. It's just not on a PlayStation or a Nintendo. So you're looking at that install base and you're looking at a Nintendo and a PlayStation. You're on install bases that far exceed the amount of install bases on PlayStation and Nintendo. What is it on those platforms that you need from them? Is it that 200 million plus is the missing link to your vision? Because right now, if you're not seeing the results when you're on everything bigger than those consoles, especially when you talk about a console install base that has not grown, why would you continue to support a shrinking part of the gaming industry when you're everywhere?
What they're going to do is release, like I said before, certain games on other platforms, like the next Doom. I don't expect the next Doom to be exclusive to Xbox. If Xbox fans are lucky, maybe you get it 2 months in advance or something. But the next Doom, it's going to be on PlayStation. You know, the next Diablo, it's not going to be exclusive to Xbox. It's going to be on PlayStation as well. It's going to be games that make sense for them to bring it to other platforms. Games that might have been traditionally multi-plat before, now they own these studios. They're going to continue to make them multi-plats. Some of these studios had some games down the pipeline. It's going to make sense to keep these games multi-plat. Maybe the odd game they're going to keep for themselves. But a lot of games are going to reach other platforms. But once again, I don't think it's going to be the core games that make up Microsoft's identity.
Let me do this.
You know what else they did today? Is that they made sure that even on their own show, they're going to have to shout from the rooftops that their own games are exclusive to their platforms. And that's crazy. They're going to have to do that now because what they have done with this announcement, the 4 little games.
Listen, Phil today should have came out. Phil today should have came out and said, "Listen, Halo, Gears, Forza, Fable, all of these games that you know and love, these games are not being put into consideration to bring to other platforms." He needs to be very specific.
He didn't say those.
He won't because they are.
He didn't say those games.
He won't because they are. That's why.
And then he said Starfield and
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones are not part of the 4, but then said never say never to The Verge. But the thing is that the messaging, again, now when they do their June showcase, every one of those games, they're going to have to really specify that this is not coming or this is an Xbox exclusive. Yeah. And that's the bed that they made now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know,
it
is what it is.
Your fault. Again, you're trying to fault Microsoft that they're not doing. You guys are blaming them. Oh, you need to do this and you failed to do this. And Microsoft's like, we're putting the games on PlayStation. That's why they're not saying it. You guys are holding Microsoft to a standard they're not even setting themselves. They're not saying any of these words. They're not even using the word tempo. They never said that. They're not saying these stuff. You guys are holding
that is
they're not saying.
Listen, like I said, we can speculate on which games may come, sure. But I don't think anybody in their right mind can speculate that all the games are going to come. This is ridiculous.
I was going to say as well, D,
Again,
you know,
you
another
still
point.
have not preached an actual business sense on why. Your best thing is to sell consoles.
I already did.
Everybody-
I already did. I already did.
No, there was no business sense. Your answer is to sell consoles.
It just doesn't make sense to you.
Listen, everybody in this room is listening to you like, sell consoles. Like, what is this dude talking about? Like, you're the only dude in.
I think everybody in this room has enough common sense to know that Microsoft has to keep some games
real
for
quick,
themselves. Like, it's just common sense.
Is, a lot of the games that Microsoft has now owns now, a lot of or most of them are the ones they acquired. So like the core ones that identify as Xbox branded games, those are only the few. So the ones that people still see as multiplats are the majority. So it's like, so what's not coming? Halo, Gears, and Forza. That's the minority. If everything else goes,
but look,
that's
we
a
need
lot.
to look at.
That's what I'm saying, BG. I think that the core ones are going to stay. I think they're going to have some one-offs. You know, Activision, some of these other studios make a one-off that's an exclusive. But the majority of the games from these studios, I don't believe they're going to be exclusive. I believe they're going to be on other platforms.
Wow, you're saying three? So that's just three. Hold on,
why? Because of the investment that they made. They want to make it back. Number two, you have the value of those games being in Game Pass day and date, so there's value to the Xbox customer. Number three, you're going to still have some exclusives that are going to remain on the Xbox brand. It's all about money at the end of the day, and it's all about walking the line. And you know
what are those games though? Is it Halo, Gears, and Forza? Is it just those three? You would say?
I would say it's going to be like Fable, Halo, Gears. You know, say Activision has a certain game in the works. You know, maybe one of their games is going to be exclusive. Say Bethesda has like 3 games in the work. Maybe one will be exclusive. 2 of them will come to other platforms. It's going to be a situation like that, in my honest opinion.
It's because at this point, I feel like
he's just making shit up now.
No, because it's like if you put 75%. And they're looking at the 25%. It's like, what are we keeping these here for? That's like it almost makes no sense at that point.
We put 99 games.
It's gonna be where it makes sense. I honestly, I think if you look at things objectively, you can see that yes, a lot of exclusives are gonna make their ways to other platforms because they need to get their investment back, and a lot of these companies are third-party companies. But to think all of them are going to come is, I'm sorry, it's just ludicrous. But I think more than the Xbox gamer would want are going to come, and I think from a financial standpoint it makes sense because Game Pass is growing on PC. It's not really growing on Xbox. They're kind of at their cap on Xbox. You know, I think there's 2 or 3 times more Game Pass subscribers on PC than Xbox. So you know they have to find ways of generating
Game Pass subscribers on Xbox right now.
Than PC?
Yes.
No, there's not.
Yeah,
no, there's not, man.
Yeah,
they just announced it today that they have more subscribers on PC than Xbox.
Oh, do they now?
They said that?
They always have. They always have.
They always have.
That's used to me.
Yeah, there were 15 million PC Game Pass subscribers and only 10 Game Pass. So he's right. There are more PC Game Pass,
and that's including the core people that they moved over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
wow.
Yeah.
Real?
Yeah, that's what the 34 included the core. I do have a couple super chats here.
It's just niche. The Xbox console is just niche. It's niche.
One question.
Wait.
One question. Which is the more successful gas game? Halo Infinite or Sea of Thieves?
Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
I would say Sea of Thieves.
They killed Halo.
All right.
They killed Halo.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as a franchise that make move, Halo would be. I wouldn't say as a franchise though, like a bigger Halo probably.
I want to hear.
So the bigger gas game that Microsoft released that goes to PlayStation, but the weaker one, we got to keep it because it sells consoles.
Are you crazy? Do you know how the world of gamers would be on fire if they brought, like, come on, like, even if they were to do that, listen, if they were to do that, they would have, hold on a second, if they were to do that, they have to roofie, hold on a second, if they're to do that, they're gonna have to roofie every Xbox drink, okay, like it's not, that's not something that they can just do so easily like that. Just use common sense.
I'm sure Satya cares about that. Yeah, right.
I think they're rocking y'all to sleep now, though, with this whole.
Use common sense.
I think it's a slow drip. I think it's a slow drip, and they're trying to see how far they can go. But I think common sense knows that they can't release all of their games on other platforms. Come on, man.
D-Batch, the only thing I would say about the Halo point is the Xbox consumers have kind of, in a sense, not totally, but largely abandoned Halo comparative to where it was before, right? So for Microsoft, you're talking about the fandom will be annoyed, but they're probably thinking financially, well, you guys aren't playing the game anyway, so like you're not supporting the game in the way we expected, so why shouldn't we? I'm just saying, I'm not saying it is going to go over, but I think there's probably a potential. I did also want to touch on another thing, because I keep seeing it discussed on Twitter, because I think one of the Xbox fandom just wants this, like, yeah, you too, but it's a false equivalence, right, with the whole PlayStation multi-platform thing. The thing is, the COO, he didn't actually say anything new. Everything he said was in a presentation last year, right? Multi-platform, what they're referring to is mobile and PC, not Xbox and Switch. And also on top of that, people don't realize last year, or I think now it'll be the year before, PlayStation they formed PlayStation Studios mobile division, right? And they actually bought four in total, including Sony Music, because 2 mobile studios are under Sony Music, weirdly, and they actually make one of the biggest mobile games in history. I think it's the eighth highest earning, Fate Grand Order. But they also bought 2 under the PlayStation banner. And those 2 mobile studios, Fabric and someone else, they are working on PlayStation IP for the last few years. We just don't know what they're working on. So I think when he says and computer and multi-platform, he's not referring to Xbox like PlayStation. Xbox is referring to PlayStation and Nintendo.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't know why they thought that means games are coming to Xbox. No, I thought it was quite clear. It was more to do with PC than Xbox. But a lot of people kind of are missing the details of what he said as well, because first of all, they released their games on PC now. All of their first-party games are pretty much going on PC now. The problem is that they're coming really late, like 2 years after. Now he says, I want to be more aggressive. Now, how can you be more aggressive on something that you're doing already? That means you got to go harder. So that would mean that the games are going to come a lot sooner on PC. That would mean that more games are going to come on PC. And I'm all for it, because like I've said, Xbox and PlayStation and PC, they're separate groups of people. So even if you want to keep it on PlayStation for a few months before you release it on PC, it would still be beneficial to release it sooner than later on PC. Because if Spider-Man released day and date on PlayStation 5 and PC, I think it would shatter records. And I think Sony is smart enough to see that and to understand that.
I strongly disagree with that. So
but that's the same argument that you're making for Microsoft, because it's the same thing. But he specifically said he wants to grow, and he can't grow anymore just on the console. Specifically, he said that.
I agree. I agree with that. So I agree with that. Let me just exactly. Yeah. So I was going to touch on this point, and I made a tweet about it a while ago with data, right? But the thing is, and Sean Layden actually said in Persona and Bari's podcast, he spoke about this. He said for PlayStation, they are cognizant of the fact that they do not want to trade a PlayStation ecosystem consumer to a PC sale, right? Exactly. They want additive sales only, revenue that they would not otherwise get. What's happened with Xbox is
Is Sean Layden the boss? He's not the boss anymore.
He's not the boss anymore, but he's the one who made this. But
he's not. There's a new sheriff in town, and he said something completely different. So you can't hold what Sean Layden said.
But he didn't say. You've conjured the first the date thing, right? Remember, Hiroki didn't say anything like that.
I didn't say day and date. I said they're going to be more aggressive, releasing them sooner.
Yeah, true.
I didn't say day and date.
What does that entail, though?
That would entail maybe 6 months, a year instead of 2 years.
But again, we're very minimum, that, right? We're just assuming
they're at a year right now.
No, 2 years. 2 years.
Aggressive would mean 2 years more than now. So they're gonna move it up, because if not, why make such a statement?
But it might not. It might not. But no, that's not true. Yeah, it might not even be time frame.
Listen, prior, they didn't have any live service games. They didn't have any games and service games. Now they got a games as a service game, right?
Exactly.
They're starting to release their games and service game. So that's what that entails. They went out and invested
Everybody made fun.
Nah, you're assuming they're all gonna come. You're assuming they're all gonna come. You're assuming they're all coming. They're all coming.
Let me help y'all. Let me help y'all guys.
Wait. I just want.
Joey, hold up. Just like with things, y'all need to stop assuming what these companies are going to do. They just stop. Y'all need to stop that, right?
Well,
There's a new CFO.
How long ago was it though, P. Rocco?
And he feels that. Hold up. No, but listen, and we just talked about this Wednesday. Remember, like it's just weird.
Yeah, so there's
a new CFO, and he said in his, he did say this. He feels that there's people that don't truly know how to maximize profit. So he's going to inject some ideas. D could be very well right. If that CFO feels we need to put game, if he feels we need to put game day in, listen, and he's able to back up his information, they will pivot. We need to stop pretending that everything is locked in forever, perpetual.
The thing is, you know, that quote is taken out of context. If you read the full answer, he actually specifies exactly what he's talking about.
I saw the interview. That's not true.
Yeah, so it is what he's talking about. The context was not. Okay, I'll read the quote to you. How about that? Would you prefer that? Because the thing is, the thing is, what he's specifically referring to is the leaders and the studios at the PlayStation, right? And he said they're very creative, they're very inspired, right? But they basically want to make the games that they want to make without consideration for the cost, right? So the thing is, and it's true, because PlayStation, when you look at Spider-Man 2, that shit costs 300 million. Last of Us 2 cost 280 million. These studios are perfectionists, right? Like Neil Druckmann, because he didn't like the lighting in a certain scene or the facial animation or Troy Baker's acting, he will book in a whole another day or 2 days at the studio for motion capture just to get 1 2-minute scene.
That costs a fortune.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that probably costs, 100,000 when you do all the key animators and everything and all the time and motion and redo 3 modeling and everything like that, just for a few minutes, right? And the thing is, he's essentially saying, and if you read the full quote, that they don't have the eye on the margin, they're just looking at the creation point of it. And I would agree with that. You do have to rein it in a bit because there has to be checks and balances to keep the margins in. And so that's the context of what he's talking about. With regards to the PC stuff, what I would say is, if you look at you just said yourself, right, Game Pass PC is growing, console is stagnated. Also, if you look at something like Starfield, we went from Skyrim, 14% of sales being PC, to Starfield, 70% of sales being PC, right? There has been a massive convergence, even amongst Xbox, of people transitioning to PC because they don't need the Xbox anymore. And we're seeing that in the PC Game Pass growth, right? So what they've done by doing PC day and day is the very thing that Sean Layden said would happen. He literally said, if you do this, you will cannibalize your console. And that is precisely what has happened.
Yeah.
So whilst I do think, obviously, they are going to be more aggressive in the PC side, I think they will always be aware and cognizant of the fact that
I disagree. They're two different markets. You know how much it is to get into the PC. They're completely two different markets. Console players, they want something that's cheap, affordable, plug and play. PC guys, they like to tinker, upgrade.
Not everyone.
You listen.
Yes, but the majority.
You're a family man. I know.
Majority rules.
You're a family man. You have kids. I understand that. Like my kids at this point, they're both asking me to build a PC because every single streamer they watch, everything they see is on PC. So my point being is that the push that Microsoft did, that Nib just very clearly explained, is in fact happening, and you're seeing the metrics. You're seeing the console sales not keep up with Xbox One, and you're seeing PC Game Pass surpass the console Game Pass. Microsoft has been very clear, and that's why moving games on PlayStation day and date, it will cannibalize, it will destroy the console. Microsoft doesn't care.
And more than that, let me
hold on. Can I say this real quick? The numbers on PC. Let me just get this thought out. The numbers on, you know how many PC gamers there are compared to PlayStation gamers? Do you think that all of those PlayStation gamers are going to go get a PC? No. You have infinitely more people that you can expose your games to on PC. Yes. It makes no sense holding those games just on the PlayStation. Sure, if you want to hold a 1-2, whatever. But all of them, financially, they're losing out on a lot of money that is not going to affect the sales of their consoles.
So D, I agree with you, but here's the part of the equation you're not seeing, right? Even if 5% or 10%, right, move over to PC just to buy a handful of PlayStation exclusives, right? The problem is if you lose even 5% or 10% of the PlayStation ecosystem consumer base, you're not just losing one sale, you're losing every single 30% cut on every single digital purchase they would have made for the entire
all the
ownership
hardware,
of
the controllers,
So
the
just
VR,
yes, but
all
but
the
you
gain. Hold on, let me
okay,
finish.
so okay.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
So just to gain one or two first-party sales, you have lost potentially an entire 7 years of every microtransaction, DLC, and
No.
digital purchase. So that's why. Well, let me finish. That's why if you look, when did Xbox start doing the PC transition? 2016. Compare the revenue growth from Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo from 2016 to today. I can't remember the figures off the top of my head, but I did the analysis. Xbox's growth was roughly 40 to 50%, PlayStation's was roughly 90%, and Nintendo's was roughly 180%, right? So the people who didn't do the PC, even though PC is 650 million gamers, etc., people thought it was going to drastically increase their revenue. The people who stuck with the traditional model had the highest revenue growth. And Xbox, despite adding a massive consumer base to all their releases, had the lowest amount of revenue growth. So clearly, the offset from selling more PC games is being offset by losing that 30% cut.
I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, but Microsoft has been in the green in gaming for a while. They're making more money than these companies in gaming right now. Now, hardware sales are down for sure. They're losing in hardware sale, but software they're doing quite well. And once again, I gotta say, PC gamers, I don't understand why console. Like, I have everything. I'm an anomaly. I literally own everything. Like all the handhelds, all the VR headsets. But we're an anomaly. We're not the normal gamer, right? Most gamers, they're either going to be console or they're going to be PC. They are separate gamers. So I'm just throwing rough numbers out there. Say there's 50 million on PlayStation and 300 million on PC. Your 50 million people are still going to be served, but now you have access to 300 million potential customers. It financially it doesn't make sense to exclude them. I'm sorry.
I have an point
about console is it's your highest value gamer. It's your person who plays the most, they buy the most. But the thing that's also important is that customer is actually your most valuable customer across every device.
Exactly.
So I don't listen to PR talk. I listen to the real deal. Okay?
I have the data.
You're the real deal.
D, I have the numbers in front of you, right? Because I actually did the analysis. So fiscal year 2016 to fiscal year 2023, Xbox's revenue growth is 69%. The same period, PlayStation is plus 86%, and the same period, Nintendo is plus 169%. Now, you can go and look up the numbers yourself. I have every single year's revenue and etc. But that is the revenue growth difference. Now, tell me, did Xbox adding ubiquitous PC releases increase their revenue more than the competition or less? The numbers are the numbers. People can lie, numbers don't. I'm just saying.
But PlayStation is like a juggernaut. Like, come on, let's just keep it real there. They're selling a lot of consoles. They're selling consoles at an alarming rate. Okay, it's an anomaly. Okay, for what they did and the profits that they made, that is excellent. To only be 16% by your numbers down from PlayStation. Come on. And how many consoles sales are they behind? They're getting sold 3 to 1, and they're only down 60% in revenue growth.
So no, not in growth. D, you got to remember, right? It's harder to grow from a much higher number than it is from a much lower number, right? So what PlayStation is achieving, they have much higher growth, and they're already coming from a much higher.
I don't know. I just find it interesting that when Xbox is doing it, it makes sense. But when I mentioned PlayStation games coming to PC, which they are coming to PC, and they're going to be coming more frequently and quicker.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
It's a no-go. I think both of these companies are pivoting to bringing more games on other platforms.
Hey, Nib,
I think simply.
Hold on, real quick.
Let me just say
real quick. Nib, your point though, I just want to highlight something. I hope everyone paid attention to something Nib just said, because this is. When every time this conversation happens, it's people don't give this conversation the nuance it deserves. what Nib talked about, that each, and I just had a conversation with somebody who understands the knock-on effect of Starfield and Xbox and how Xbox felt about that, which I'll touch upon in a second here. But what Nib said, like the cannibalization of somebody buying their hardware isn't just they're giving up a hardware sale. No, it's more than that. Like Nib said, it's now they're in that the hardware. Think of the hardware like a storefront, right? Like you're inside of a Costco, right? The PlayStation 5 Costco, right? And everything there, they're getting everything there. You know, you have Porter Rock who's in the Costco inside the PlayStation 5. You know, he's walking down the aisle. Everything he buys, they get a cut. They get a cut. They get a cut. So then the question is it worth losing Porter Rock in Costco, buying all these things in aisle 5, 10, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever, to go to a platform to buy one game and then no longer interact with the ecosystem the way he was? Like, so where do you make up that lost revenue, the last 30%? That's important.
And here's the thing, bro.
Yeah.
The sale that they're getting on PC, 30% of it is going to Steam anyway.
Yeah, it's going to Steam, yeah.
Of it. Yeah,
but what about the Game Pass subscribers they gain, though? Come on.
So the other thing I was going to mention too is, well, that's the thing with the Game Pass. That the same thing is that Game Pass subscriber.
Yeah, but Game Pass on PC is through the store, the Windows Store, not through Steam.
Well, yeah, I'm a Game Pass subscriber, and there's certain games
and that Windows Store is trash.
I can pay $30 more and play the game early or get DLC. So just because I'm in Game Pass doesn't mean I don't spend money. I still spend money. I buy the add-ons. I buy the stuff for the games.
Though. I think we're missing the fact is that they're putting it on Steam.
So I think it's safe to say that they're going to have a strategy to support PC more. Now, what that strategy is, day and date, whatever. But because think about it, why isn't GT7 not on PC yet? If the game's like 2 years old by now, it came out in 2022. Demon Souls remake was a launch game, still not on PC, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he could be looking at what are we waiting for? How come MLB The Show isn't day one?
Well, there's a lot of different. There's other things too, Porter Rock. Like
you see what I'm saying? So
podcasted, but
and stuff like that. But hold up. But the one thing I'm not gonna, I've learned this lesson. I'm not gonna die on any hill on what I think a company is gonna do the long term, right? Because a long time ago, PlayStation had no games on PC.
Yeah.
And they started with one, and they said it's gonna be 2-3 years, and then they put one within a year, and now we have a day-and-day game. I'm not going to be the one. I'm not going to go out there and be like, well, for this game it makes sense. For that game it don't. I'm not doing that. I'm not juggling shit no more.
Hey, they want to make it better on PC. They'll find out what happens to their PlayStation stuff.
What I'm saying is this: nobody in this room is a shareholder. That's the end of the day. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do what they want. None of us has a vote. We don't have a vote. We could perceive and we could say, again, and I think D-Batch made a good point. Sean Lane is not there no more. All it takes is a couple of replacement people and a couple of shareholders or a couple of people with a different perspective that say, this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this?
I do want to say
you already have the one guy.
P-Rock.
I got a question.
All it takes is it takes a couple of people with new attitudes to make a decision. And then that's it. There's nothing we can do about it.
What Satya did to Microsoft.
Yeah, he got. Listen, after that man lost 2 years of compensation, he's done with this console shit. He's like, get the fuck out of here.
You don't like exclusives? He's done, man. And Balmer was different. Satya is different. Yeah.
Yeah, Balmer was different. Hey, I got a question for Nib. Nib, I find the Xbox. Again, I mentioned this. I've been in the ecosystem for 20-something years, and I've seen kind of the evolution of Xbox. I find it fascinating as a case study to look at how they're transitioning, if you will. But you talked about the numbers, and I think you went back to the Xbox One generation. Game Logic, who's on BRAP podcast, which goes live every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Nice
shameless plug.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's ran the numbers too, and he ran. And I don't want to misquote it here, but he kind of came to some kind of similar conclusion, I believe, that you did when he looked at like their revenues at Xbox One to now. And he's like, they're basically like, it's really been like static growth for them in terms of revenue.
Yeah.
Where they actually they actually had to spend like $80 billion to get back to where they were.
Didn't Phil said that on the podcast though? Phil said that they ran into a wall. He said it on the podcast.
This is a really. Maybe I should. Are we going to talk about PlayStation numbers?
Nib, I was just going to get into it. I'll do the
good.
Nib, hold on.
Segue.
We're going to move into that right now. Nib, hold on 1 second. I want to say one thing. First of all, I have to do a shout out real quick to the super chats. I'm going to get yelled at here, Nib. I apologize. I got the great The great Mega Cloud here. He says in 2013, all people wanted was a beefed up 360. Pork Poncho, who says he's a neutral. Shout out to Pork Poncho. He says Phil said that great exclusives won't sell Xboxes. These are from before. Microsoft themselves call Sea of Thieves a AAA game. Let me in the podcast. Pork, we'll talk about it next week. I already got a lot of people here. Aaron Paloman, he says, keep talking J-Dub and Porter Rock. The whole slate is coming to PlayStation. Thank you, J-Dub, for being a true gamer because you buy games. Shout out to Aaron. Lord Metroid says Nintendo will never go multi-plat. Their IP sell. Liquid D. High. This is funny as hell. Sean Layden said, once PlayStation put quality above all else, then from the middle of PS3 era till now, Sony has found success. And Mooch, I'm going to need this $10 back. Left my ass off. He says, much love to the panel. Thank you, Liquid. I appreciate that.
Mooch, I got to step out, man. Sorry, guys. It was a great debate, man. Great debate. It was a great
debate. We tried to keep you here as long as we could. Sphere even says, Sphere said that D is in denial. He says all games will be ported to other platforms. What's stopping them now that Microsoft has the development kits? Get real, man. He's using your words there, D. That's one of yours. Get real.
I think
D, I'll see you on Gear 6. You know what I'm saying? We'll crossplay.
I think both sides we're gonna have to take a wait and see approach on what's gonna happen in the future. But I think it's fair to say that both companies are pivoting, and they're looking at other platforms in ways to make money, whereas Xbox is looking to put some games on PlayStation to make money, and PlayStation is looking to put some more games on PC to make money. So it's an interesting time, and yeah, that's it, man.
D,
subscribe to me, D Batch. Follow me on Twitter, D_Batch. Thank you once again, Mooch, for having me.
Absolutely,
it was a great discussion. And the Xbox is gone, so you ponies can speak amongst yourselves now.
Thanks a lot, D-Batch. Yo, guys, go over and check out D-Batch at his channel. He's got a great video coming out right now. D, thanks for being here.
All right, cheers.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
Jeff B, but Nib, I want to give you the microphone. Nib, I know you want to talk about this, and I want to get Dutch involved too. Jeff B Gaming said something, and I wrote to him in the chat. I said, Jeff, I was just about to say this. We keep saying Sean Layden's not the boss now. I would like to remind you, and Jeff B, I'll read your super chat. Hiroki is the interim CEO. He's a placeholder till the next PlayStation head is appointed. We won't know till Jim's successor is picked. And I do want to emphasize that. There is something there. This gentleman is the money man. He's the money man. He is seeing what Helldivers 2 is doing right now. Yeah. And we talked about this. For how many weeks have we talked about this? PlayStation guys were under attack. Xbox camp was saying, hey, now you guys are doing games as a service. Now you guys have live service. And all PlayStation guys said was, well, all we need is one to stick. Like have a Fortnite or is that. I'm not even saying Helldivers is that. I'm saying to you, this is the point. He sees that these references that I understood he took, and Nib, you could say I'm wrong. That's fine, because you were just about to read his actual long quote. But my thing is this. He's referring to the live service games. Will they maybe up the ante a little bit on some of their single player? The emphasis on Sony and the money they make, we cannot reiterate this over and over enough again for the audience. Hardware is a major part of their sales. If you don't believe me, again, the Portal, the earbuds, the 13 headphones, the VR unit, they are invested into hardware. Right? I mean, everything.
That's funny, man.
You know? So that's the thing. So that's the one thing I just wanted to bring up. So he's the interim. These things that he says, I mean, could he do an executive order in place while the interim? Absolutely. Well, what he does in the next few months until an actual head CEO is picked, I don't think he's going to actually start putting things in print quite yet. He's got his feelings. He'll definitely have the ear of the other people, the other CEOs, the other brass of Sony and PlayStation, but he's not going to make that decision up front. And I think what he was referring to, Nib, was in fact.
He also seemed like he wanted to, look at the excessive cost, like maybe try to reduce the cost of the development of these games. Like it did seem like that too. Like you had to have developers make smaller decisions.
Yeah, Jess, to your point, I mean, I wasn't surprised with what he said. He's a bean counter. Bean counters are ruthless. They are ruthless. Mm-hmm. They will squeeze as many pennies as they can to increase the bottom line. They will look for.
Brap, I hate to interrupt you, dude, but every week this guy's something else. I just got to announce him out loud here. Astro Cyborg, otherwise known as the Mad Clipper, he clips everybody's podcast. He says he's gone. He goes, laugh out loud. He's gone. So now we can talk. The topic won't be about Xbox. D talked about PlayStation and PC games for the last 40 minutes.
You can't pay attention to that guy Mooch. He's a weirdo on Twitter. Like
he clips everybody's podcast.
He lives with his parents. Drinks Mountain Dew.
Sad day.
Wax off to like old reruns of Baywatch. So don't pay any attention to him. But like this guy's Hiroki. He's a bean counter. I mean, and like a lot of the stuff he said to me screamed. We got to figure out efficiencies. We got to figure out to drive. I forget who. I think it was Nib.
Jim Ryan also was too.
Yeah, Jim Ryan was. Yeah, he was. He's a finance guy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you saw what Jim Ryan did. He was like, "Look, like we gotta make more money." I mean,
but I definitely agree with him about that, because when you look at like even when you watch the Grounded 2 documentary and just how how PlayStation first parties function, and when you look at their games, you could just see the amount of budget they spend on things that are cool and it's real attention to detail, but don't matter in the grand scheme of things. Absolutely don't matter. It's not going to make your game better or worse necessarily. It's like one of those cool things to have that we always want to be the epitome of quality. But there's a bunch of things in a lot of these first party games that, we appreciate, but we wouldn't miss it if it wasn't there either. So it doesn't validate the time and the budget that they spend on it. I think they really have to do like a real reevaluation and look at it and it's like, we spend this much money doing this because we want our game, because we're perfectionists. But does this really matter? I think they really have to look at that, because you can't keep spending that type of money and that type of time on minuscule things, that only the utmost graphic whores who zoom in, and listen, let's be clear, I love me some good graphics, right? But it's really, some of the things they do are only for the digital foundries who zoom in 100% to see things.
Yeah.
So it's like, is that really worth the budget? Probably answer is no. So I respect him, respect what he's saying.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, go ahead, Chida.
You're also going. Listen, that's very dangerous because we don't want to end up with watered down products. We like The Last of Us, we like the God of Wars and Spider-Mans and stuff like that. We don't want to see any of that get whittled down. Now, if it takes you $300 million to make that game, then do it. Because your sales, right? You're going to sell 10 million copies of that, 15 million, 20, however many copies you're going to sell. When you make a great game and you put the quality and the effort and the time into it, it sells. If you just look at Sony's their first party IP, and the way that they sell is in line with the quality. At the same time, nobody else out there outside of like Rockstar with GTA is doing what Sony do with putting a bunch of developers on there, spending the crazy amounts of time, putting the quality in there to do that. So if you remove Sony's first party games from that equation, then we're going to end up with probably regretting that in the future. We're going to be looking back on the old days. Man, you remember the old days when this used to be there and we used to get games like this? Now all we get is games like Power World and stuff like that. The industry is already trying to push that shit on us. They're already trying to push these.
Look at the quality of Death Stranding 2, man. That looked incredible.
I agree with you. I'm not saying compromise on the gameplay. That's the most important thing. But the peach fuzz on Aloy's face doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about.
I don't disagree with BG. Like Nib was saying, like
nobody else.
I zoomed in on it.
No, but like
the ray tracing in Ratchet's eyes.
Nobody else is giving you that.
I need like photo mode.
For first, they're gonna say, "Okay, we'll remove the peach fuzz, then we'll remove this," and before you know it,
you got Master Chief and Master Cheeks.
I think
it remove our armor.
I think the problem is
we got next generation consoles and nothing to show off. I think
something's gonna have to give though. Because this is a conversation that's happening at DICE right now, and I kind of agree with BG. Like, do we really need peach fuzz? Like that to me seems a little Like something that you
Absolutely.
really need that. I don't.
Here's the
and what
thing.
you need,
Do we need? And I get J though, because that quality is amazing, right? But do we need Peach Fuzz and then we don't see nothing for 4 or 5 years? I think Insomniac has the best formula. Whatever they did, they need to spread that formula because they found a way to give us an amazing game that is selling a shit ton. But then they release Ratchet and Clank, right? Then they released, another games, Spider-Man 2, right? I mean, I'm Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Then they released Spider-Man 2. They're working on Wolverine. And because of the leaks, they got X-Men. They have a nice, decent cadence, right?
Yes.
When you have an extreme quality,
hundreds of millions of dollars, though.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They have multiple games though, so I understand why they have $100 million. They're releasing a lot of games, but for them, I think the big money, like the $300 million budget game, right? Like Spider-Man, right? Yeah, those games or any game that has that budget, to me, has more than just be a good game to sell. No, you got to sell consoles because that's where the real money. So Spider-Man, absolutely. I understand why that's a $300 million game, because that game is going to sell consoles, which in turn, and they broke it down, you're going to get the money transactions, you're going to get other game sales, you're going to get controller sales, headphone sales. So Spider-Man on its own, the success of Spider-Man is not strictly the sell of the game itself, it's what it does for the platform. But other games don't need that budget because some games aren't system sellers. They're just going to be a good game, right? But here's the thing. If you have 1,000 people in a studio and they're being used because of meticulous detail, you gotta be like, how many people actually appreciate the peach? Like, you gotta ask yourself, how many people really appreciated the Peach Fuzz on Alloy's face? Like, realistically,
I did.
Yeah. No. But realistically, let me put it this way. Let me put it this way, J-Dub. If they didn't put those little details, but 3 years later they gave you a SOCOM, would you prefer that?
I want my Peach Fuzz.
No, stop it. I ain't replacing Peach Fuzz over a whole game.
You're not going to win this argument with him.
There's no way. I'm going to take Peach Fuzz a whole game. To be honest,
not only a budget.
I'm going to be honest. Here's the truth. Nobody knew about the Peach Fuzz until somebody put on Twitter and zoomed.
When I booted up my PS5 playing Horizon Forbidden West and Horizon,
oh my gosh,
I saw it was the Peach Fuzz. Man, I'm not compromising that for nothing.
But it's not only budget; it's timing too. Some of these games would absolutely come out earlier, and they would start working on their next game earlier.
So let me ask you this, because that you make a very valid point. So would you, instead of them making a game 40 hours, would you be okay with them making it 20 hours and lowering their budget some and that way? Would you be okay with like Morales, right?
Some of these games can absolutely be shorter. Listen, I love God of War Ragnarok. You could easily knock off 3 hours off of that game. Easily.
I agree.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, Sean
Lady
BG
talked
about that too.
BG makes a point with that with God of War. Honestly, and BG, I know you're as much of a fan of it as I am. I want to get your take on this. I even thought Last of Us 2 was a little long. Like that was a long game. There's no way around it. I mean, I thought they could have maybe even shaved a few hours off of that one.
Well, Days Gone. Days Gone was really long.
I agree. Days Gone was the longest game ever. They could have 30 hours out of that game.
Jay, I thought Days Gone ended 3 times. I thought Days Gone ended.
I know, me too.
I was like,
yes.
I was like, we
found the game. That's the one game I wanted them to end like 20 hours earlier.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah. Hey, but real quick, guys. Like back to like what BG's point and like something, like I said, something's got to give. So I think, like, obviously this conversation, I said this earlier, this conversation is happening at DICE right now. I saw somebody tweet out AAA, sustainability, lack of investment from venture capitalists right now. I think what's happening with the game industry is that we went through the big, Jacob, you and I've talked about this, the pandemic bubble. It burst. It's done. The kind of growth that the industry saw, that's not happening anymore. So there's kind of course correction, but there is something to be said about AAA game development. I think something's gonna have to give. Whether either budgets they create efficiencies in game development, which I think that's happening behind the scenes. I could be wrong, but I think that's happening. AI, things like that, ways to kind of streamline development. We know companies are focusing a lot on efficiencies right now. But the other thing too is we have to raise the price of the of AAA games to consumers. Because you guys remember the CEO of Capcom said we're past that $70 point. Like the games need to actually be more money now than what we're charging. And this is like this past summer he said this.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Let me say one thing. I'm being honest. I'm calling cap on all of those people in the industry who are saying this bullshit. And the reason I'm calling cap 1,000% We consistently see them talk about the profits and the revenue that they pull in for all of these fucking games. I'm gonna tell you what the truth is. The truth is that they've seen Grand Theft Auto, they've seen Fortnite, they've seen other services games like that, and they see the amount of money that they pull in. And these companies want that. They want to have that one game where they spend very little amount of money and have the same returns. Therefore, everybody is chasing that. So since they try those, and if it don't work for them, now they want to take it out on their single player projects and their other projects, and now they're claiming, oh, well, the industry is just this and that. It's fucking bullshit because we see the profits that come in from for a lot of these games.
Yeah,
we
but
but
you know,
look what happened to EA. Look at EA's pipeline. All of a sudden, Apex Legends comes out, and all of a sudden now EA just kind of slows down with its releases.
Even Rockstar.
But you know what?
Rockstar too. Yeah.
Hold on. If you go back in Rockstar, go back to the 360 era. These guys used to release like 5.
They released a freaking ping pong game.
They were released not only
ping pong, right? From Rockstar.
They released ping pong. They released,
I remember that.
Fully. They released what's the Midnight Club? They were
Midnight Clubs. Those are good.
Remember, did they have like Manhunter or something?
Yeah, Manhunt, Bully.
All of these games, right? They will release all of these fucking good games that we loved, but then
Warriors.
Way to make that one game that's a service to make recurring revenue, they forgot about all those other games. They dropped everything and they just focused on GTA. And then eventually they did a Red Dead, but other than that, that's it. There's nothing else.
Look what Call of Duty did to their freaking games after Warzone released.
Absolutely. Look at Activision. They used to release all of these games. Call of Duty come out. Guess what? This is it.
I think, but yeah, real quick. I think what's happened, and maybe Nib, you could chime in on this too, but I think, and I have to go back and pull the numbers. I think their profit margins have been impacted. And so now what's happening is now you're looking at scale now where you have to sell more copies than you used to, and that's a riskier proposition. I got to sell more.
They do. They're selling more games now than they've ever did.
No, but you have to
not all of them.
You have to keep doing it.
Horizon Forbidden West and Spider-Man 2 are actually tracking relatively close now. I know Spider-Man 2 out the gate was the fastest ever, but now I think Spider-Man, if I remember correct, Spider-Man 1 sold 9 million in 2 months, and Spider-Man 2 has sold 10 million in 3 months. So they're actually tracking very similar, but Spider-Man 2 has a considerably higher budget, like 3 times as high. So
Spider-Man 1 also had a season pass and released some more content shortly after the game, whereas 2 is not doing that.
Shuhei Yoshida said this. He said a lot of these games are not like they don't really necessarily get profits, but they're filling in the space. They're not only entertaining the gamers, but they keep people coming back and going out and grabbing people. So not every game you need to make $3 billion on every single game that you come out. Some of this is just the price to pay to be in gaming. That's what I understand what the whining is about from Microsoft's side about all of this stuff. If you're in gaming, your job is to make games and sell your products. If you're in hardware, your object is to get people to buy your hardware.
Yeah,
all of this other stuff,
using your software to sell your hardware.
Well, that's it, right?
Look what Sony's doing. Sony's taking their own IP from their video games. They're making TV shows, movies, all kind of other stuff, leveraging other arenas, right? Even their music studios and their movie studio. They're leveraging all of this to make more money for gaming and for the company. And I get that. Like, other people need to start thinking outside the box and doing that. You can't just tell me, because I'll plunk down $70 now, not $60 like last generation, but $70 for a game, and you get it. So you
maybe
get
$100 for a game with that bullshit DLC
more than they
Super
ever
Edition.
have. They're spending more money on microtransactions You're getting all this money, more than you've ever gotten in history, and that's still not enough for you? Like, I'm calling cap.
You know, the thing about it, and Jez has probably got the sound clip,
Mhm.
but I mean, Jay, you said something there. Jez reiterated it. The one thing, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the quote in front of me, but when Phil went on that XCast show, whatever it was, 6 months ago or whatever it was, 4 months ago, and he's like, just because, you guys think we're going to make a great game, that means people are going to come and buy our console. But I don't know how. And Phil said it today. He goes, I've been in gaming for 20 plus years, with Microsoft for 20 plus years. Like, that is how it works. I mean, Nib, I always make food references. I'm also usually hungry by this time on an evening of this such.
Nib's got the best food porn, by the way.
He does. He really does. But listen, if I open up a restaurant next to your restaurant, listen,
you're going out of business, Mooch.
Well, no, you're not wrong. I got my work cut out for me. But the only way I'm actually going to pack my house is if I make great food. It's the only way to steal people from Nib's restaurant, that goes for consoles. It goes for better sneakers. No matter what it is you like, that is how it is. So when they said, that's why I went back when I asked BG that quote before, and I said that to him. I said, it's not that Phil said that. He knows that's not true. The reason he has to say that is because he is invested on the Game Pass model, and he's invested on doing subscription and cloud.
The 360, that was one of the reasons, right? Like Gears of War, Halo, Bioshock, Mass Effect. Yeah, it was like you almost could not, as a general consumer, you could not turn your head. You have to invest in it because they've got banger after banger after banger. Yeah, and not just like critically acclaimed games, but games that would push the visual fidelity and benchmark, right? Because if you saw Gears of War, you're like, oh my god, like this is way ahead of anything we've ever seen. Technologically, it's pushing the hardware. So that kind of stuff, draws you in, and I feel, and maybe it is part of it is the PC thing, because now they've gone ubiquitous PC release. Suddenly they have to optimize for PC simultaneously with console. Maybe that is part of it. Maybe they can't optimize in the same way as they used to, and that's why like a Halo Infinite looks the way it does, and a lot of these games are not really these these benchmark pushing titles that they maybe used to be in past. So yeah, I mean it's a lot of things, but I genuinely think something
else I want to bring up is like, one of the things that I think we have not seen even in last generation and stuff is even the consoles themselves getting cheaper. Like over time, dropping officially, not just going on sale during the holiday, but like, all right, now the Slim comes out, so the older version now drops to $100, and now the Slim, like even with PlayStation, with their Slim, it went up in price with the discless digital one to try to get you to not buy the external drive and the non-external and get it for cheaper than the one that's comboed. It went up in price, and it's like, we don't see the consoles kind of start shaving $50 off new MSRP, and you get more people on board the console, and you get them at different price points. Like even we didn't even see that, and we only see them on clearance, or they go on sale during the holidays, which now forces people not to buy the system throughout the year or wait because they see it on sale during these few months. Well, just change the MSRP, drop the price of them. And then when those people come on board, they will buy all the games again, get into your ecosystem. But we haven't seen that. Those prices of those consoles stay. And, I thought they'd make money eventually on them, but...
That's the CEO, he actually mentioned that, right? So Sony set a staggering target, 25 million consoles they were going to sell in the fiscal year, right? It's the record-breaking number. Nothing's ever done that before. And now they have had to redo their projection because they're not going to hit that number. And there was doom and gloom from shareholders. But the thing is, that number was always crazy to begin with, right? And even if they sell... even if they sell 21, 22 million, they've sold as much as the series has sold in its lifetime to date in 3-4 years in 1 year. It's still a mega number. But the thing is, and he talked about this, he said the problem is, and I agree, I even said it before as well, is the price is too high, but they're constrained by the market and components. And like this time in the PS4's life cycle, it was $300, and actually in Black Friday and stuff you could get it for $250. We're comparing $250, $300 to $500.
Yeah.
Well, it's insane. So, and the
No
fact
wonder
that
the
they're
console
still
market's not. It's
exactly.
stagnant.
So to me, it's like, even okay, fair enough, you didn't hit your target, but the fact that you've sold 21 million potentially in a single year of a super high price console is still really impressitive to me. Like, and it's and
During
they still
inflation
had
and all those stuff.
exactly, and still the revenue wise, they it is the highest revenue for the fall quarter that PlayStation has ever had in its entire company history. Over 10 billion. It's crazy.
And as far as like, the PC day and date, everybody's been talking about it, and people have always made claims as to when. Well, nobody really knows when. That's the only thing that bothers me about it. Like, we don't know when. I remember the conversation started like 4 years ago, and people were like, "Oh, it's definitely gonna happen soon, like next year." And then next year it was gonna it's gonna happen next year. I'm like, bro, we don't know. I'm not saying it's never gonna happen. Like P Rock said, I think it's very possible, and you should never die on any hill. I think I think it should never happen if they don't have like Nix is able to do it, work alongside the studios.
right.
Like, I don't think the studios themselves should ever be working on their own PC ports, because I do think you will see some issues and some problems.
Yeah, that's
so.
a problem,
I never want the studios working on their own PC ports. That's going to cause problems. So Nix's will have to do everything, although I have to port it to another port studio, because I don't think Nix's has enough manpower to handle everybody's port. So I don't know how that's going to be possible.
And we saw how that turned out, right? With The Last of Us, like you ship that out.
They did their own.
Exactly.
Somebody else did, yeah. And then also you ship it out to not Nix's, you might not get the quality launch or bug-free launch over there. But I like that whole idea, because remember they were saying with Spider-Man, they were working on Spider-Man 2 while the Nix's was doing the port. So it wasn't taking away from the studio.
Yeah, and I think if it does happen, I would guess maybe the start of next gen, or after. Like, I think their priority is porting all of the current relevant, because there's still PS4 games that are not on PC. Infamous, Ghost of Tsushima, those
Dreams
could still get a.
I thought Dreams on PC, man. What else is that with VR?
They never did that. They
never did it. That was the smartest move.
I think you could still squeeze something out of those games on PC. So I don't think we get day and date before those happen. Like Demon Souls, there's still a bunch of PS4 early PS5 games that are still not on PC. So I think that would be the priority before day and date.
I gotta say, BG, it has to be reiterated though, because I retweeted it and I actually commented under your tweet. I was actually writing one earlier, and then I just saved it in drafts. And when I saw yours, I said I gotta comment on it. So many people. It's been since like 2017 when Xbox decided to go day and date. Like, oh, that's going to happen any day now for PlayStation. Any day now. And you were like, listen, you put that out there, public service announcement. You can't keep saying, I'm telling you guys. And then since 2017, if it happens in 2028, like let's say for PS6, they completely flip the switch, right? BG, they go day and date on PC. Everyone's, I told you. You told me in 2017?
Bro,
I told you.
Listen, in the next 10 years, the Chiefs are going to win a Super Bowl. Probably. As long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy, they're going to win at least one.
At least one.
It's not a.
It's
not a hot take.
The reason for that is they don't want to admit, like, you know what, these moves are being made because simply the console is not successful. They don't want to accept that simple point. If you just finally admit, like, okay, we get it, the Xbox console is not a successful venture, they got to go beyond that, then all of this will make sense. But people still hold on to Xbox consoles as if it's actually doing something. It's been a failure for 10 years. Like, stop it. Let it go.
That's why
just
you
let
made
it go. Just look at it and be like, listen, the console's a failed project. It's not doing what people think it's doing. It's completely failed. Once you accept that reality, a lot of these moves make sense. But that's not the same for PlayStation. PlayStation has a little bit different, but again, they're not immune. Because I did say this to, I think, on one of my other podcasts. All it takes is one bad gen to pivot, right?
That's true.
So the whole day and date is never going to be off the table.
That's right.
Because PlayStation could have a bad gen, and then everything changes. You know what I'm saying? Remember, yesterday's prices is not tomorrow's. Things change. With the movement of how a generation ends up.
No.
So that's why I said I'm not dying on this hill that PlayStation's never going to do something.
That's right. Yeah,
All it
that's a
takes
good
is
point.
change of management, one bad year or a bad generation. There's so many little things that could make people pivot for one reason or another.
Absolutely.
And then that's just it.
And that's it. And Microsoft made the pivot. He did that pivot. They did that pivot this generation. And now what we're hearing about with the new tech, and if it is a handheld and we're going to go cloud and we're going to go this and it's going to be a bit of a hybrid, it almost seems like it's another pivot with a different technology. I'm not saying it's as radical as what like Phil said. The one thing he did say today that I got is we have been saying this for a while. Everyone just kind of interprets it differently. And Dutch, I wanted to get you on here, Dutch, because we can kind of combine the Xbox stuff with the PlayStation stuff. Dutch, what did you think of the whole thing? A, B, the other part of it is, what about this whole, why is it when Xbox does something, everybody, especially in the Xbox camp, they say, you know what? That's the industry standard. That's the standard.
Exactly.
We need to change the standard. And I'm like, but Nintendo and PlayStation are doing well. Xbox can pivot. They can do whatever they want. But I don't see why everyone feels like that's the way it has to be. Dutch, what did you think from what you saw in the 20-minute podcast, and then put that together with what you're hearing about, PlayStation day and date? The conversations do kind of marry as you kind of continue through.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of it was an absolute corporate nothing burger. But the thing, the consistent issue that Xbox have had throughout not only this generation but the entirety of last generation is poor messaging. Always have, always will. We've been strangling ourselves talking about it every other week, every other month, every other year. The messaging from Xbox has always been absolutely dire, and they can never ever get it right. They'll say one thing, they'll do another. They'll say one thing, they'll say another. It's just never, like, they can never actually win. And they're complaining about lack of growth in Game Pass, and they're complaining about lack of growth in consoles. But if you can't market things correctly or market them at all, then how can you complain in the first place? Like, Game Pass relies on word of mouth to sell, because there isn't any marketing of this thing anywhere out. The US might be an outlier, but even in the US it could be terrible. I don't know that because I don't live in the US, so I don't see what the marketing is like over there. But I guarantee it's a damn sight better than it is over in Europe and the UK, because there is no marketing here. You can even, like, the most you might get is turn on the console, but even then the vast majority of people just ignore whatever is popping up there, because as soon as they turn it on, it's Call of Duty or FIFA or Madden. That's it.
Right.
That's all they do. Yep. They don't look at the advertisements, and it relies on me or someone else in the Xbox community to go out and say, have you heard of Game Pass? Do you know what Game Pass does? Blah, blah, blah. Well, that's only going to get you one or two people at any one time. Like, that's not going to grow it substantially to the point where it's going to be a success financially or going to be a system seller. Like, nobody actually knows what Game Pass is here unless you tell them about it physically. And I can't just go out and, as an Xbox
evangelist
user, to go out and just tell everybody about like some kind of weird knocking on doors worshipper. Like, that's not my job. I shouldn't be having to go out and do that for Xbox. Like, it's just it's a pure business strategy. How can you expect to grow a business if you're not marketing things correctly? So I absolutely understand them pivoting and putting games elsewhere, because they're not doing anything else like they need to do in order to be a successful console maker. Like, how can you expect a console to be successful if you're not actually advertising it correctly? It's 101. The reason PlayStation is so successful is because they've advertised that thing to death. There's literally marketing everywhere under everything. Like, you can name it. It is absolutely everywhere. The highest competition in football, which is the Champions League, is PlayStation sponsored. Like, you talk about anything that's on TV, any racing, usually it's PlayStation sponsored. If it's anything to do with anything, it's PlayStation sponsored. If there's Spider-Man release, you've got giant Spider-Man, like, 3D sculptures in the street where he's, like, hanging on lampposts and things, or you've got a giant God of War axe in the floor somewhere in some random city. It's viral marketing. Xbox don't do anything like that. The most you'll get is a bus covered in, like, some kind of sticker. Woohoo! What's that doing? What?
Well, Dutch, it's funny.
Or an Xbox toaster.
There's so much. There's so much to unpack with what you just said. To be honest with you, there's so much to unpack there. And I mean, it's because, first of all, the grassroots thing they did with Game Pass is 100. You're spot on, Dutch. Why should you have to walk around handing out a flyer to everybody in your neighborhood? First of all. Second of all, the other thing I always say is Game Pass is an outstanding sales pitch on a stage. Like when Phil gets up there and they're like, we have this and we have this and we have this. Like I'll give you an example. They said Diablo's coming to Game Pass. Now don't get me wrong. For new subscribers or people that waited, like to me, I bought Diablo on Xbox. I bought Diablo on Blizzard. I bought it for PC and for Xbox. Like I'm not waiting 8 months to play Diablo 4. I'm not.
Yep.
You know, and
already bought it, already played it, already finished it.
Right. It's like great. So that's one thing. And I see somebody in the chat saying, console sales are slowing down. I have a question for the panel. This is the thing. When you see that, I don't know if I necessarily believe it. We know that because Sony forecasted right in their fiscal year, the year they wanted to sell 25 million. They ended up they lowered the number to 21. I know they have metrics. I know they have a scale to do that. But I remember when they first said they wanted to do 25 in the year, and people said, that's insanely aggressive.
It's not going to happen.
That's aggressive.
Never been done before.
Right. So the fact that they went from 25 to 21, that's easy. If you just want to do
they still broke records with that 21.
That's what I'm saying.
21 is still higher than last year's 19. Remember that. So,
that's what I'm saying. They still broke records with them doing that, so it's crazy.
I think I'm not looking at, where it is, I'm not looking at that PlayStation. PlayStation's going to sell consoles regardless, but I'm not looking at it. It's impossible to tell whether or not there's any growth in that market until the generation's ended, because at the moment you have 50 plus million PlayStation 5 users. How many of those have just transitioned over from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5? Yes, you've got historic users that are migrating, but you're not going to know until generation end. Okay, so what is the actual growth? We had 125 plus million last gen. How many of those have actually migrated across? How many of those are new? Like, you're not actually going to know whether or not there's a physical growth in the console market until the end of the generation.
I think PlayStation said
new users, etc. But ultimately, the top end, you're not gonna know that until the end. You're really not. It's one of those things, like, we can speculate till the cows come home about who does what. We know Xbox is tracking behind. We know they are. They're just not getting the same users, and they're not doing the work or the legwork. They haven't done the legwork. They haven't released enough titles in order to entice anybody to come across to the platform in order to justify them increasing any console margin or getting a quicker margin to adopt the next generation. And that's on them. PlayStation, on the other hand, are migrating people much quicker. They're getting a few new users, and they're tracking above PlayStation 4 currently. But we're not going to know ultimately whether or not they've outsold the PlayStation 4 until the end of the generation. It's all speculative.
Yeah. So I mean,
you said something really interesting about the Xbox marketing. What like from my experience in the UK, obviously we're both from the UK, but I would say they are spending serious money on marketing, but it's not really efficient marketing. So I remember I said on your podcast last time, like when I got my BT Infinity, it's like a 500 meg package, and they have a 1 gig package and a 500 meg, I think anyway. And they gave me 6 months of Game Pass free Ultimate, and if you get 1 gig, you get a year's free. But then I went into Greg's the other day and they had a Game Pass advert as well. But in my head, I was thinking they're very strange places to put Game Pass adverts. And I'm sure if you walked into Greg's, you wouldn't even know what Game Pass is. Like, you look at it, okay, what's Game Pass? Like, I'm here to buy a bloody sandwich. Like, I'm not,
it comes on Samsung tablets too. Like, you get like a Samsung tablet, you get a month, 3 months. On it. Not even on Windows computers. Like, you get it on Windows computers, but you also get it on a tablet, on an iPad.
Every laptop you
buy an
now,
iPad, you get some.
Yeah, every laptop you buy, like a month Game Pass. You're like, I need it.
Yeah, but then you know what you said about the viral, because I actually made a tweet about this, about how I think the international marketing angle that PlayStation has is really fruitful, because it has massive conversation on social media, etc. So, like the giant axe, or they have all these statues, even in Saudi Arabia and India and stuff, they had all these funky things going on, like the Burj Khalifa was all lit up with like Kratos and stuff. Like, they do these things that draw the attention and social media buzz all around the world. So they trend worldwide, not just in one specific location or whatever. And I think that's the kind of marketing that Microsoft needs. And I actually would say they used to have that, and they used to have trailers. Like, I still think Gears of War trailer, the Mad World one, is one of my favorite all time. It's fucking one of
What
my
about the
favorite
Halo?
trailers.
The Halo 3 one with the guy doing the war.
Amazing.
Remember he was. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah, that one was crazy.
It wasn't even like you have to go all the way back to when they had that really wild one about like live fast game, like you need to game now because like, and then they showed you this guy like going from a baby all the way through to an old man.
Oh my god, they banned that.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That one. That was the banned one. Yeah.
I remember that.
The other thing that kind of came out of today that I want to ask you guys. This has been asked a few times, but it's been kind of shelved on Twitter. Is they made the announcement. They had Sarah Bond there talk a bit about Game Pass and what's going on. She makes the announcement about Diablo 4, but wouldn't that have been an outstanding time, especially with games? They know what was going on. They know the backlash that the Xbox brand kind of got for the past 10 years while we were waiting for this podcast to come around. Is it odd to you guys that they didn't want to mention, since they mentioned Activision, Blizzard, and King at least 10 times, that they didn't say, and don't forget, this fall, Game Pass, day one, Call of Duty. They didn't say that.
Yeah, another thing about messaging there, Mooch, that we even mentioned it on my show before I come in here.
Yeah,
is that they left it open to interpretation. And in one hand, she said every Xbox first party game is always going to the Xbox Game Pass day one.
Yeah,
that's one thing. And we're going to start with this, but like, okay, well, Call of Duty's coming out this year. We know that. Realistically, do Sony still have the marketing rights? If they still have the marketing rights, then ultimately, are they going to put that in Game Pass day one? Or are they putting that in Game Pass day one? It's completely open to interpretation, again, because they haven't clarified. So, is it going there? Is it not? If it is something, you really need to shout about it, because that's something that Call of Duty players will absolutely want to hear.
Hey,
again,
I want to say
one question to the audience, and the devil's in the detail. And I know we're all saying, Game Pass has 34 million subscribers, and that's not good because including core.
Yeah.
But now I'm looking at the video again. Sarah Bond said 34 million Game Pass subscribers will have access to Diablo 4.
Mm-hmm.
Core doesn't get that access, don't they? They don't get to play Diablo.
Core does, because Core was. This is the difference. Like,
so this number is not including Core then.
No, they are including Core. No, they are.
No. They had to walk it back. They had to walk. Yeah, she had to walk that statement back.
Where she walked it back?
So
hold on,
because she said,
I just passed it up.
Yeah, because she said 34 million gamers will have access to Diablo 4.
Correct.
Core gamers don't have access to Diablo 4.
So they
can't be part of that 34 million.
So Microsoft has already confirmed to Tom Warren that the 34 does include Core. He asked them directly. So then 34 million don't have access to okay. Because I was like, wait a minute, 34 million. Okay. So then he asked.
Clarification.
So she made the mistake in saying 34 million have access to Diablo 4.
Right.
Is that right, J-Dub? Because last I checked, Microsoft wasn't answering the question of whether Diablo 4 would be on Core or not. They hadn't answered yet.
Well, no, but Core is kind of like PlayStation Essential.
It's Xbox Live.
Core is
you play online games.
You don't get access to the library. Yeah, you don't get access to the library.
You have to play online, right?
You gotta get access to.
It's pretty much. It's games for gold. It's games for gold.
Yeah, but you don't get new games a month. You just get a set of like 15
you get
games to your library. It's almost like the PlayStation Collection.
PlayStation Collection, but there is a chance that Diablo 4 could be part of that collection.
Okay, that's true. They could probably give it to the Core.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
like 25 games or something in the Core section, so they could quite easily curate it and just say, okay, this is the big game that's in Core now, and like you want the bigger games, they're in the rest. Like that's what you need to do. So they could curate it so Diablo is the big game that's in there now for this section.
Yeah, and in terms of monetization, Diablo has a lot of microtransactions, right? So even if you gave it away in Core, you could potentially still make money from the Core consumers who play it.
Yeah.
So what is it? So
I still don't understand the purpose of that podcast today. Like I feel that it was a complete waste of time. They even had a question in there that said, what this is nothing different than how's this different? This is not different than anything we've been speaking about earlier. Like, it's all the same stuff. They even talked about backwards compatibility again, and just almost like a reminder of all the things they've been saying over the 6-7 years, the same stuff. Like, I don't understand why he couldn't just say with a tweet on last Monday, just like, yeah, some games will be going to other platforms, more to come later. And that's it. But let this thing wholly sit for a week and a half and then do this. I just don't get it.
The reason, Jez, I think, and it's what we speculated early on, and I know a lot of people listen to the show and say, well, you don't know that. We don't know that. But the reason I think they did the podcast is because there is more to follow. So I think that's the thing. If he just said, oh, yeah, we're just going to bring Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, that's a tweet and you move on with your life.
Well, no, don't even say the games. Just say some games are going to other platforms, and that's it. Like,
well, he had to give context to soften the blow a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Which is the worst section. Like, it's even worse now because now he's saying, okay, this is the first four, we're kind of seeing how it goes, and then obviously right now it's not Starfield and Indiana Jones.
So and when those four get him out, what is he going to have to do another show and be like, oh, and here's the next three, or the next four? This worked out pretty well. Here's another three.
Like, what I don't understand though, and I don't. This is someone I've put like 7.5 days into Sea of Thieves, so I've played that game substantially. I'm Pirate Legend on it and everything like that. Probably one of the few people that have. So I've played the game. I know what it's about. But that game, although player-wise was successful with 35 million, like sales-wise, across that 35 million, it was like 10 million or less.
And what's crazy too is that they actually removed the PvP that they had, the little deathmatch mode that they just kept it as the PvE. So they've
got like an hourglass mode now. So you do this hourglass thing, and then you go under the sea, and then you pop up, and there's a PvP section. So it's kind of there, but it's different now.
So they brought it back, okay? Because I remember they took it out
in a different way. So you can kind of choose to go PvP in the open world, or you can choose not to. It's entirely up to you. But it isn't a separate mode. It's all in the same thing. But ultimately, what I would like to say about Sea of Thieves is, I don't believe it will be a sales success on PlayStation. I think if Microsoft had any smarts, they should be angling to try and get this into a service. I think they should be angling to get it onto PS Plus.
Dutch does my job for me. So that was one of the other things I was wondering is, I think I don't remember if it was P-Rock. Might have been actually, I think P-Rock had mentioned it on Tuesday, but the first place I heard it, I think it was King Thrash actually said this. He said Sony's not going to just let you put the Xbox games onto their console to give exposure, because Phil said it gives he goes, part of being on more platforms gives Xbox more exposure. It lets more players that didn't play before play our games and maybe want to buy an Xbox or maybe get into Game Pass, right? So I'm wondering, and I'm asking you guys, do you think when PlayStation does get Sea of Thieves, because Dutch just said it, Dutch, thanks for that volleyball, buddy. I got to spike it. That was awesome. I was wondering, will Sea of Thieves end up in PS Plus?
I personally think it needs to. I think it needs to. I don't think
that's a give and take, right?
Fight on the PlayStation community. I just don't think.
I think
that's a game that will sell.
That might be a move.
That
might be a move, right? Because that will definitely guarantee that they at least get more people in the game. Like if they just put it for sale, like what is the price? $40? Is it going to be price of like $60? Like what is the price? It's been out for a long time.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy that. I mean, what are
you going to price it at? $60? A 7-year-old game, 6-year-old game showing up? You can.
But think about it. This is a win-win for both. So Microsoft gets their exposure. Right, like what Phil said, but then Sony
and the player count, because that's the main thing. They want more players,
right? And Sony gets people to say, "Well, geez, I've been subscribed to PS Plus. Now I have a game that's never ending." Right, so guess what? I'm going to keep subscribing.
The additional bonus, of course, they do it on the Xbox titles, but on Sea of Thieves, you get ship sets that are specifically for games within that ecosystem. And naturally, if Sea of Thieves was in PS Plus, you'd do ship sets that are naturally geared towards the PlayStation IP.
That's right.
So you'd give them the God of War and the Spider-Man and the stuff. You do ship sets that are based around that, so it would make sense. Yeah, it is a game that relies heavily on microtransactions.
That would be pretty cool. I like to have like PlayStation IP as chips and stuff. Yeah, well, they did it, dude. Did they do it with Halo? Did they have a Halo ship, right?
Halo, Gears, Battletoads.
They had Battletoads. That's the one I had. Yeah.
But they could also do this, and that was my point. And I put it into the topic was they could do it for Sea of Thieves. They could do it for Grounded. Because think about it,
yeah,
I just don't see people paying, like Jez just said, anywhere from $40 to $70 for Grounded on PS5. I don't really.
Well, Grounded was
see it.
30. Yeah, Grounded was a
Or
preview
30.
game at 30.
I don't even think that.
We'll see if Thieves. It'll be interesting what the price that adds. It's been out so long.
Exactly. By the way, I was just going to say it has been confirmed now that the 34 number did include core, but that Game Pass core folk aren't getting Diablo 4. So she just misspoke.
Oh, wow.
Oof. Messaging.
Yeah.
Messaging.
Yeah,
Again.
Dutch
Good
just
job.
said this. Dutch,
Which is
everything,
weird
Dutch,
for
everything
a
you said,
pre-recorded video.
everything
Right,
Dutch has
pre-recorded
said has
video
come
with
true.
rehearsed questions. Oh, thank you for asking that question. Like, man.
So is there,
weird.
and I said this on the show a while ago too. Let me throw this idea out to you guys. Phil said the only other way, there's two ways to make money, right? You put that IP on multiple platforms and get new players to come to that game, or you ask your existing player pool of players to pay more. Since they're not mentioning Call of Duty still in Game Pass, they have not really mentioned it specifically. Listen, I do think at the end of the day, Call of Duty ends up in Game Pass, but one caveat. I think it goes into the Ultimate Game Pass slot. I think you have to be an Ultimate Game Pass member to get Call of Duty day and date, and then it may go to that middle tier
and the price
after.
And the price is going to go up.
You
bet
your ass it is, Jay. It's going to be that'll be $19.99 before, maybe even before the end of the year.
25. Yeah.
I think. Well, they'll do small increments, right? Everybody, listen. Anybody in retail knows this. You want to stay
have
under
like a guarantee? Did they not have like a guarantee as part of this that these things cannot increase, which is why we got the increase previously?
Nope. There's no guarantees at all.
I don't think so, Dutch, because Ultimate already went
They
up.
have the right to
the whole rigmarole with the FTC when they were arguing with them about like, okay, well, what do we say that you're not going to increase the price of X, Y, and Z? And then we laughed about it. And
they did ask them that.
They did. You're right, Dutch. You are right. But didn't they bring Ultimate Game Pass was
the price like
no, but I think the whole thing was that they didn't want. Dutch, I think they didn't want to have them put Call of Duty in Game Pass and then increase the price and that be the only service where it's available.
Exactly.
I think that's what it was. Like, it's so if they put it everywhere, I think it was that for them to kind of like pull it, make it their own, pull it off the platforms, and then have everybody funnel into their Game Pass, and then they increase the price. I think that was what the FTC. I think that's what they were asking them not to do.
Okay,
because to pull it, but they did ask that though.
Ultimate was $14.99. It's now $16.99, and I think once maybe
still don't have a year.
They may do it. They may do it by the end of the summer. I would think September. If they're going to do a price increase, it would be sometime between August and September because Call of Duty's coming out in October. They don't want to do it the week of or the day of, so it would be $19.99. I mean, like I say, listen, Netflix is doing it, Disney Plus is doing it, Amazon's doing it. Everybody's doing it. All the subscription services are now, they are really hitting us hard, nickeling and diming us to death with everything. And I think that this is what's going to happen with Gabe. And I'm wondering if they put Call of Duty in the high tier and now you're paying $20 a month and you're like, I'm predominantly a Call of Duty fan. I mean, it doesn't even encourage you to go get an Xbox to enlist and to subscribe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Call of Duty is going to be a real, I think at least for the first time, they're going to be real cautious about that because I think they have all eyeballs on them.
Yeah.
And I think they're just going to keep it like there because I don't think they can even say like, hey, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you get the Battle Pass for free or something like that because all that perks, like they made a big status quo across, the thing. So I think probably the first one this year probably is going to be very status quo. Who knows? But what I want to know is why nobody is asking when's Call of Duty coming to the Switch?
Yeah,
anybody?
No one's heard that.
Anybody? That was a big deal, right? Yeah, more people
that was
play.
Part of the deal.
Yeah, it was part of the deal. Any Switch people asking? Anybody talking about it? When's Call of Duty coming to Switch?
Switch gamers don't care.
The new Switch with the new Switch.
But hold on. Is there any Call of Duty on the old gen consoles? PS4?
No,
Xbox One?
Oh.
No.
So then that's
they're all Switch developers, dude. That was a big deal, right?
But the thing is, the hardware, the hardware's old. They're not making. So
Microsoft
you have to release
it without talking to anybody.
But
Switch supposedly gets Call of Duty.
Switch has to release. They have to officially release the Switch 2 first.
Hey, I don't know what the deal was. They didn't say which Switch. They just said Nintendo joined the Call of Duty family without talking to the Call of Duty developers. And anybody asking what's going on with that? Nobody. Nobody cares. And Nobody knows.
But right now, it's not going to be on the Switch now. So I think when the Switch 2 is going to be interesting, right? Because like these 4 games, the one thing again they have in common is they're easy to port. I mean, I can't talk on Sea of Thieves, but Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, I think is one of the titles, right? That's not going to take much to port, and they can easily run on the Switch. Sea of Thieves and Grounded, I guess, is the other 2 ones, right? But again, both of those games can run on the Switch. So Microsoft clearly picked games that could be on both PlayStation and Nintendo, and I think easier to port as compared to maybe a Halo Infinite or Starfield or whatever. But that also comes into play. Some games may not come to Nintendo not because Microsoft doesn't want to, but the hardware may not be powerful enough. Like if the Switch 2 is rumored to be as powerful as a PS4, that's a problem.
But that's a small install base.
Right?
Yeah.
If you
make a Switch 2 exclusive.
Yeah, so not exclusive, but like maybe like the smaller AA indie games will go to Switch 2 because that's all it can handle. But yet you're not going to get Elder Scrolls 6, not because they don't want to put it there.
Listen, that Switch 2 is going to be a tough sell for developers because that Switch install base is so huge.
Yep.
That Switch 2 is going to be starting at 5-10 million by the holidays or something like that, and you got a 130 million install base with the Switch 1. It's going to be hard to pull from that and not make a game for both of them.
Oh yeah, there's going to be some cross jump between the two.
But EA does the same thing with some of the sports titles on Nintendo Switch.
Oh, EA drags it out forever. Yeah.
Like it's a severely downported version that is just not on par with others, but it's there, and that's what they class as a port. And I ultimately think we're going to see, when it comes to Call of Duty on Switch, it'll see more of a mobile port of Call of Duty going on a Nintendo. I think we'll see. Obviously, the mobile version of Call of Duty is there. It's okay, but I think you'll ultimately see something built around the mobile version of Call of Duty.
They promise parity, right? That's what Mooch said. They said across every device they're going to be all that. That's going to be the PlayStation game on the Switch.
They specifically didn't mention. They said on Nintendo that the technical parity won't be the case because it.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I was talking about. I thought the question in the chat from Josh was
feature parity. They say feature parity.
Feature parity. Yeah,
not technical. Yeah.
That's something. I got to be honest with you. So
when is that promise going to be granted? I don't know. Like they haven't talked about it. They use it as a big leverage card with the CMA and the charts and all that other stuff. But I just think how funny how there's been no mention of it ever since they use it as a calling card in the CMA battle.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out this year when they announce Call of Duty.
Maybe in June. Yeah, you're right. Maybe that June showcase they'll show. I think they're going to cover Call of Duty during that June showcase. Definitely. That's probably going to be a highlight.
After today's podcast, though, I will say this much. Now, the whole will Call of Duty ever leave PlayStation? No. No.
It makes too much money.
Way too much money. They make too much money on that. No, and I mean, that was as clear as day. That's what Phil was really kind of driving home. It's those games that are community-based. There's no way. Like Minecraft, never leaving. Call of Duty, never leaving. No way. I mean, I agree. I don't remember if it was Nib who said it or it was Didi even said it. Even Diablo, the next Diablo, which by the way, Diablo comes out every 10 years. I remember people being like, well, we're gonna get Diablo 5 on Game Pass. You guys have to pay $70 for it. I'm like, yeah, in 10 years. Like, I mean, what? That's not really a flex. But nonetheless, guys, I kept you guys here almost 3 hours, and I know you guys, a lot of you have been podcasting all day. So,
Mooch, I want to ask you one question. I know you want to go, but I just want to know everybody's here. What did you think of the mannerisms of them? Did they look excited? Did they look defeated? Did they look like they were forced to do it?
I said that earlier when you weren't on the show yet, Jeff.
I wasn't on the show, sorry.
I said they just, if you're reading the room, I said, and you're just looking at them, their shoulders were shrugged down. They were all kind of looking at each other like, is it my turn to talk? Save me. You know what I mean? Like, Matt, say something. Thank God Sarah chimed in. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, and it looked forced. And what I mean by forced was, someone said to me, Mooch, I wish, at least they were speaking from the heart. It didn't look scripted. I said, it didn't look scripted. I said, I kind of, for their sake, they should have been scripted. I think like,
audio only.
It didn't come off with assurance. I didn't get that feeling. If I was a hardcore Xbox fan, yeah, sure. Maybe they put a couple of worries to sleep. Like not everything's going, day and date to Game Pass. But other than that, they really look like what they were doing is and this is not me speculating. They're testing the waters. I mean, it's as clear as day. They're putting
the only things that they really ruled out, Mooch. The only things they ruled out was the fact that people were going out saying nothing's going to be day and date in Game Pass. They said no, everything's going to remain in Game Pass like always, day and date. And second one was we're definitely all in on hardware. Like not only do we have hardware this year, but we're already working on the next gen hardware plus other devices. Like they are. Okay, we are fully all in on hardware, and we've got Game Pass day one always, but the rest is completely open to.
They reassured.
And the other thing too, I just wanted to say, last point on that, I do think that this podcast was not just to the craziness that happened in social media, but I think it was also a plea, not really a plea, but like a message to developers like, hey, don't leave us out. We're still in this, because a lot of the whole console's dead. We're not Game Pass is changing and stuff. I think it was a message out to developers as well. Like, we're still here, because I thought it sounded a lot like that too, to their partners and developers. Like, no, what you're hearing is not true. We're still behind it. Because I felt like it was a lot of that too, to kind of don't abandon. Even come work here. He was even recruiting people, even though, this is a good place to work and stuff, like even that message was in there as well. So it seemed like it was more of a message like that too.
That's why I got to say, like, had to exist. Go ahead, Nib.
I don't know, Aggie, maybe I'm completely wrong, okay? I don't know why they even did it, because it's such a miserable defeatist, like, thing to put out for your brand, right? And it's like, even talking about, the layoffs and everything, it's like, is that really the image you want to portray? Like, you don't even have to talk about that, really. Like, business is business, whatever. But it's almost like they're going through the rumor mill and trying to massage people and comfort people and whatever. But it just ends up looking really defeatist and kind of a bit like a company that doesn't have its proper identity and doesn't have things under control and isn't steering the ship like with force. It's almost like
you know what? Listen, if you guys are listening in the audience, and you want to just double check what I'm talking about, go back and watch the show that they did when they first acquired ZeniMax, and they had Pete Hines in the room. They had Todd Howard, Phil, and them. It was a lot of right. There was a lot of confidence in that. They were like, "We just got ZeniMax. We have Bethesda games. We'll let you know what games. Games are going to be on Xbox only." Right? Their chest was out. They were smiling.
Chest out.
This was not that at all. The body language looked, the shoulders were in, everybody was hunched over on their chair. It was like the minute Phil would run into the end of his sentence, he literally was looking over like, one of you has to say something now. Like, say something.
Yeah. I think I saw Satya Nadella and Tim Stewart in the corner, like giving evils to Phil. I think that's what it is.
Satya's holding up his cue cards. He's like, bitch, you made me read about Halo. Now you're going to read my cue cards, Phil.
Talk services
you
now,
dressed me up in that Halo jacket. These are my cue cards. Bitch.
Oh my God, it is funny. No, and Jez, I'm glad you brought it up. But like I mentioned it earlier, and it's funny to have these conversations. People go, "Well, that's just how you read it." I'm not saying that's how. I really think if you go back and watch it, it was very glum. It was very, and it was even the announcement for Diablo, which everyone was. If you're a Game Pass member right now, like that is something that you were probably waiting for, and it was still kind of like, oh, and by the way, we're Diablo's going to be there.
Dude, Persona said that even the host, the lady asking questions, it was like, yeah, that's great. Phil, next question. Like, she didn't even like elaborate. Like, oh wow, Diablo's like mocking it a little bit. They're all rehearsed.
I want to say this.
It's so funny.
When it comes to the podcast, they have a timestamp, right? The last segment is described as, what does Xbox stand for today? And what they said was, Xbox stands for today is that you'll have a platform with the biggest games. You'll have access to Game Pass day one. You'll be playing on a platform that's dedicated to the gamer with features such as crossplay, cross-save, backwards compatibility.
Yep.
You'll have a platform that is dedicated to making games more successful, and you'll be playing on a platform that is dedicated to making creators more successful. But you know what they didn't say? That you'll be playing on a platform with exclusives.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna end off, and with that, I'm gonna depart.
And with that,
the only Quarter Rock 77. You guys have you go. Go look at it yourself.
Yeah.
Take it what you want. They did not tell you are playing on a platform with exclusives.
Yeah.
That's not what the Xbox stands for today. You all have a good night.
It's crazy we have that discussion about exclusives, though. That really is crazy. Indeed, P-Rock really did. He bounced. That's great.
I'm just really curious if like this was a decision that Phil wanted to make. I don't want to act like a mind reader. I'm just genuinely curious if this was all Satya, pushed by Satya, or
it looked like it.
Phil's like, no, we should do this.
BG, if you look at the mannerisms, go back and watch it tonight. Just take a look at it. It looks like it was like his boss told him, you're going to do
holding
this.
hostage.
Yeah.
You're doing this. Yeah. And I think too, like the fact that it took him so long to get this together, I think there was a lot of I said when I was watching it, I was like, the three of them sounded like this was what they were saying was like almost their plea in front of Satya's desk about what Xbox is and what it should be and what their plans are. It sounded like this was what they communicated to him to try to change some of the decisions that were being made, because that's what it looked like, the three of them.
Because at the beginning he did say this wasn't what was originally planned. We had to pivot, but I'm like, did you have to pivot because the information leaked, or did you have to pivot because doing this was like something you were forced to do? I didn't know what he meant by that.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, and I'm kind of psyched we're talking about this on the show right now, because that's something I'm sitting here and I'm watching it, and I was expecting that ZeniMax feel. I was expecting to see something snappy,
right? Confidence. They spent $80 billion on this huge company, the biggest deal in gaming, dude. You sit there with your chest out, and he's like,
they didn't even sound excited to tell. Like, honestly, if you're selling your product and he's like, listen, we want to get more of our product out there and this and that, it's almost like they're walking on eggshells, right? They're scared that they're going to get this backlash from their community, so they can't really be excited about it. He's like, we're excited to bring these games to other platforms. I'm like, you're not acting like that. I mean, you certainly don't look it.
What it boils down to is Satya essentially can go to Phil and say, listen, I backed you with this 80 billion acquisition. It's time for you to back me. So this is my decision.
Well,
that's probably what happened.
Dutch, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, okay? Everyone says, well, Phil saved Xbox. I'm not going to go ahead and dispute that. I'm not here to do that tonight. Maybe he was the one that pitched it, but he knew that Satya was into services. He wants monthly subscriptions. It's what they do with Windows. It's what they did this is what they do. And that's fine. That's their business model. So that's what he had to do to save it. That's fine. But now, like BG said, now it's time to get in front of the hot light. And he's got to sit there while his boss is literally...
The other reason I think it probably wasn't Phil, and again, we could all be wrong with it, we're only assuming, right, is so Tim Stewart is actually the first one to make the comment about his exact words were slight change in strategy, and then he said something about paraphrasing, what you might have thought of as competitors historically or whatever, they're going to bring more games to those platforms, right? And then Satya Nadella in the end of year fiscal year report, like meeting or whatever, he said basically the same thing, right? So those two, so the CFO who deals with the money side and the actual head honcho himself, they're the ones who were the first out of the gate with this narrative, not Phil Spencer. So I almost think that maybe it was more of a money decision than a Phil Spencer thing, especially when he's so entrenched in not the console wars, but he does really engage with the Xbox community, and he's very good at utilizing
them. And
exactly. Yeah.
And you know what's Nib too? Like the thing is, when you said in Tim Stewart's and in Satya's interviews, they dropped PlayStation and Nintendo as other they dropped those brand names in their quotes. Where Phil was just like other platforms, because even if you watch that show, you would just be like, well, what do you mean 4 games that you can't talk about are going to other platforms? Like what's is that phones, or is it like, if you were just watching this, you'd be like, well, what are you speaking about? Because he never mentioned the console, like PlayStations and Nintendo in his
I think he said consoles plural.
Consoles, okay.
Yeah,
consoles.
But he didn't say them by name. Where Satya was like, this gives us a great thing to put games on PlayStation and Nintendo, and Tim Stewart said the same thing.
Yeah, he did.
Like
the other thing is it's kind of, I mean, look, they built this up for a week. They built this up for a week, and you don't say the 4 games? Like,
I know.
It's
I kind of understand why though, because they don't want to take the limelight off those studios unveiling their games on other platforms. They want to give them
probably
chance
keep them motivated.
Well,
that's
apparently
a good
they're
point,
not. They're
Dutch.
not new games. So what are you
No.
really taking away from
Well,
them?
that was my thought, Jay. But I guess, let's be honest, Jay. If he did announce them, like at Rare would be a very, it'd be a much used tweet for the next 7 to 10 days. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know, maybe that. But I'm with you, Jay. They're older games. It's. And he said it, right? 2 of them are the community based and 2 are smaller titles. And they're a year plus old. They're older games. So like that's Sea of Thieves. That's the worst kept secret. Pentiment. Then it's gonna be Hi-Fi Rush, and then it's gonna be Grounded. I mean, I don't see how else.
No one else I brought up when I was watching this thing. They have done this before with Minecraft Legends and Minecraft Dungeons. They put them day and date on PlayStation and Switch. They even announced it at E3 with Minecraft Dungeons, because at first Minecraft Dungeons was going to be a PC exclusive, and then the next year they said PC, Xbox, and then they said, oh, here's the next line, Switch and PlayStation. And those both games launched on those consoles. There was no meeting. There was no announcement. There was no 2 games are going to these platforms. So there's definitely something behind just 4 games going there, because they made day and date games with Minecraft Legends and Dungeons. And what's crazy is that when Phil said that we're learning, it's like, well, didn't you learn when you already have put those 2 games already on those platforms? And then find out that Minecraft Legends, they stopped adding content to that game less than a year after its release.
Right.
So it's really was it a success? I don't think so. But don't you learn from that? So maybe they did learn and go, oh, well, that's where we got to go. But it's it's so strange that you need a podcast to talk about 4 games going over there. Like, this is something that's crazy, never happened. Meanwhile, you just did it for the last 3 years. Day and date Minecraft Legends and Dungeons. These were new Minecraft games over there. And there was at E3, you didn't have to do any presentation, any kind of podcast and anything like that.
Unless there's more than 4 games where they just
that's
don't know
what this is a shift.
4 to do first. Yeah.
But
the thing is, again, it's not actually 4 games, because like I said, As Dust Falls, I know people say, oh, it's made by a separate studio, but it's actually a Microsoft owned IP that they on Justicia you can go and check the trademark and Microsoft own it. So they've still actually started the ball rolling beforehand.
The asterisk on that one, Nib, that I heard is not that it was developed by not one of their first party, but it was published by somebody other than Microsoft. That's why.
No, so
that's what I heard.
On Xbox, the version was published by Microsoft, but they've allowed them to publish the PlayStation version.
Okay. All right. So it does. Yeah, I mean, if that rings true, then yes, it would be 5 for sure.
Yeah. It would be fine, yeah.
And I think too, moving forward, I think we're going to hear a lot more when Phil takes the stage of less about exclusivity. Even though last year that was since they bought ZeniMax, like Chest Out and stuff, it was about exclusivity. They announced it. Even they announced the Elder Scrolls and be exclusive. I think now he's going to go back to exclusives. Like he already started today, and then he even mentioned it too. Like, I think in the next 5 years, exclusives is not going to be important. He's going back to what he did before when he had no exclusives.
Exactly.
And first party games didn't have the impact.
This is the part of it I cannot it's just the idea of it is just frustrating. But we're gonna have now for the next few years. Sorry to say it, put the console war out, but all the Xbox centric accounts and big followers, they're gonna push this notion now. Just like they said, cross gen doesn't hold back games, even though it does and it always has. And they're gonna now say, oh, exclusives are bad for consumers and everyone we shouldn't have exclusives. Even though that's not true. So that's what we're gonna hear now from nonstop.
And Phil, I think, is gonna lead the charge and
he already did
minimizing exclusivity.
Did it today.
He started today, exactly. And if you remember, that was a cycle. That was a cycle. And exactly, Josh says he already spit on Helldivers. Like, well, Helldivers, and to make Sony look like the bad guy. Like, what does that benefit Helldivers? He's already, and remember how they made Sony look like the bad guy with crossplay and exclusivity and why you locking them down in a walled garden. And then as soon as they bought ZeniMax, Then it was chest out.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Starfield exclusive on Xbox. Yeah. Oh, and Elder Scrolls 2, bitch. Sarah, get out there. Tell them about Elder Scrolls 2. And they were all talking about exclusives, and they're like, yeah. Oh, and then they go say, oh yeah, what is it? Redfall? Don't make the PlayStation version. Only on us.
But
stop that PlayStation 5 version.
Porter Rock said what you said. Porter Rock said what you said earlier. That's what he said. He said the same thing. He was like, wait a minute. In one hand, you're saying these are exclusives. Like he said it today. These other games are not. There's going to be games that are not going to be going. They're going to be exclusive to the Xbox platform and also PC and Game Pass. And he goes, then some will. And then he goes on and he says about Helldivers, I don't understand why that's not on Xbox. But you just said that some of your games will not go on PlayStation. Like, shout out to Sanadu.com. Sanu.com, pardon me. He says, Phil wants Helldivers. He goes, what happened to Halo and Gears? Like, fix those.
And the other thing I thought was quite funny with kind of like a double speak was, when he said in future you're going to see less, exclusive.
He's already doing it.
But yeah, because PlayStation, PC is another platform. For you guys, you're talking about PlayStation and Nintendo. It's two very different things. Yeah, and on top of that, if Xbox start doing more multi-platform games, by virtue that already makes his comment true, right? If Xbox out of the three start doing more multi-platform releases, already you're going to see less. You're going to see less exclusives, right? By virtue, so it's kind of like, it's these things that he says, which they are technically true, but they're it's meaningless almost. Like,
shout out to Ryan Landis in the chat. He goes, Phil Zenga's calling. All right, so there we go, Zenga. So I got the great. I just want to read these couple super chats here. Shout out to the great. Impatient, and he waited a long time. Patient Fia, he goes, Helldivers 1 was day and date on PC back in 2015. I did not know that. I don't know if you guys knew that. I did not know that. I did not. So Juan Sosa Gaming, he says PlayStation is an anomaly. Cut the cap. I think that was back when D was here. So shout out to Juan. I appreciate that. Miles says PlayStation games already take a while to come out. Games day one PC cause, I think he means that, longer dev times and higher costs. What is Sony trying to lower? Dev times and cost. So we touched on that, Miles. I apologize for getting into it so late. Truity says, what's stopping other titles if casuals buy these? And I read Sanu.com's already, which was very good. And Mansa, thank you so much for subscribing. A lot of subscribers tonight. I really appreciate you guys hitting that button. Hit that like button. I'll go in reverse order because we just lost the great J-Dub. J-Dub was probably went to go play Helldivers.
Sorry, I brought up some topics.
Listen, Jez, I gotta tell you, man, you kind of, that was a comic relief because it was great.
Mooch, are you closing up?
I am. What do you got, Nip?
Oh, can I just say, I was going to say one more point because I know someone might call me out on this, so I want to clarify. So I know when we're talking about revenue, I know the Xbox fandom, they always talk about profit margins, right? Like, but what about the profit? What about the profit? Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, Xbox don't announce their profit, so it's difficult to compare that to begin with. But I did want to make a point about margins. I know that development costs have gone up and PlayStation is talking about increasing margins, but I think the point of it that people aren't always considering is PlayStation has gone from 11 studios to 23 in the space of a few years. Xbox has gone from 6 studios to 40 studios in the space of a few years. Games don't recoup their costs. They basically are a cost sink for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years until they release, and only then can they recoup their costs or profit. Sometimes not even straight away. Sometimes it might take a year or two, right? Now, when you suddenly go from 11 studios to 23 studios, among them Bungie, who alone has 1,500 employees on LinkedIn, suddenly your outlay is dramatically higher. But guess what? All those studios you acquired, none of them have released new games yet. So your margins can't suddenly overnight be better because you're still waiting for those games that are cost sinks temporarily to release their games at a cadence, and then suddenly your margins will be back to normal. So I think, all these fiscal reports, they keep saying higher development costs. People are thinking, 300 million for Spider-Man 2, that's what it is. No, that isn't what it is. PlayStation already had that projected in. What they're talking about in a wider spectrum is the sudden difference in studios they have and the sudden dramatic number of developers. And because they haven't released those games to make that money back, temporarily now in this interim period, they are going to have lower margins. But once all those studios and Bungie's, what's it called? Matter or something like that, their new IP and all these Firespray and all these other, once they start releasing their games, the margins are going to look very different. It's just they're still in that period where nearly all of them are working on their projects. So just keep that in mind.
And also too, wasn't it that I saw someone with the Bungie acquisition still like clearing or something like that was like affecting it? I think you put that out with it.
Yeah, amortization of acquisition costs. The same actually, funny enough, with Microsoft, their quarterly report, they said even though Activision accounted for 2.08 billion in revenue, overall they made a 400 million loss because of acquisition related costs. And Activision usually is a profitable company, but they made a 400 million loss. So you got to factor these things as well. What I'm saying is the picture we're seeing of the margins now is not really the true picture of margins, because there's all these completely different variables and sudden dramatic increase in costs that will be leveled out as the games start coming out. Because games, like I said, they can take 4, 5, 6 years to develop, but when they come out, typically PlayStation IP are profitable historically. It's just it takes a while for that profit to come
when you talk
through.
about that massive figure that you just did, Nib, with what Microsoft just did with going from those few studios to an unbelievably large
40.
amount.
40 is insane.
40, right?
Yeah,
So
in a short amount of time too.
Well, listen, there's going to be. Phil said it today. When you have these types of acquisitions, jobs do get cut, things happen. The other thing is the reason that your logic makes sense, and the reason that Microsoft doesn't just want you to go buy the game for $70 and only maybe 5 million people pick up a game and then that's it. Then it starts to drop. They want that $20 a month. They want that continuation. That needs to happen, and it needs to happen at a scale far greater than it's currently moving forward on, Nib. That's the thing. So in order to recoup the costs and then start to inch your way into the profit margin, they need the subscription. The entirety of these purchases and going from 6 to 42 or 43 teams was built on the essence of getting somewhere in the vicinity of 80 to 100 million subscribers. And clearly, we're not seeing that growth. And that is why today was shoulders down, glum faces, and games going to other platforms. I mean, it's just the bottom line. They have to make the money on these titles. The ABK deal, I don't know, unless, like you said, unless there's a smaller game that's going to come out that we don't know that an ABK team is working on. But like even D said it. Even D said you can almost bank it that the new Doom, that game will also be on PlayStation. Probably even day and date. That's just it. All I did right there is take your facts that you just read off, and I make it. I gave a hypothetical, but that makes sense. It makes perfect sense, and it aligns.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't. Obviously, they like I said, they don't reveal their profit and loss. But like, I would love to know how much 40 studios cost to maintain annually, because I can't even imagine. Because if you think about it, like, they have far more employees now than PlayStation, like way more. So their overheads are going to be astronomical. And overnight, basically, because I can't remember what it was, but Activision is 20,000 plus like employees or something. Like, it's just insane. But then again, Activision is generally profitable, but it'll be interesting to see how they fare under Xbox going forward.
I don't know how Booty can run it all.
Yeah, I know, it's insane.
That is going to be interesting. It really, really is. And listen, I nobody knows, but Phil's been one of the longest lasting heads and CEOs of this position. I mean, Andrew House didn't last this long. I don't know if Jack did back in the PS4, PS3 day. I don't know. Jim wasn't there that long. Phil's been here for, I think he took over the CEO chair in 2014.
Mooch, he said today he's still learning.
He's still learning. He's still learning.
Today he said he's learning.
Well, then maybe he's got.
He says they're all learning. He said actually he threw Sarah and Booty with him. So we're all learning.
I love it. No, I completely agree. They're still learning. Shout out to everybody, man. You guys are all here. But listen, this 3-hour podcast, 550 people still here, over 800 when we were at our peak. I got to say thanks to everybody. Jay God, thank you. He goes, Mooch, you should do radio, or if you know anybody at WNBC, tell them to give me a call. WNBC. But nonetheless, I got to say thanks to this amazing panel that stayed here. These guys, the other guys, I told them we're going to do a 2-hour podcast after they've done about 15 other podcasts. So I can't say thanks enough to them. Thanks to the 550 that stayed here for 3 hours. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I see Matty Beast out there, Captain Ply. I see all you guys out there. It's great. Jamar Bates, I appreciate it. Brian East, all the Mooch Maniacs out there. I'll go in reverse order here and say, Jez, thank you for coming on. I know you had a show. You've done content. You've been all over the place. You've been on Twitter. You've been very active. So, Jez, let people know where they can find you. Thanks for being here tonight with us.
Hey, man, when I come to the CrossFire, you're getting all the Grindhouse.
Yes.
I'm going to stay here.
Yes.
So I'm committed. So, yeah, you follow me over at the Gaming Grindhouse on YouTube and Jez7780 on Twitter.
Awesome, Jez.
Thank you. Hit that like button. Pleasure speaking with everybody. It's a great show. And, it was a big podcast that they had Xbox, a lot of nothing, but we had a lot to talk about here. So it's entertaining. And fun.
Tip your cap to yourself there. If they had a 20-minute podcast and we were able to make 3 hours out of it, that's talent. Jeff.
That's right.
That, my friend, is talent.
And it was 20-hour podcast with nothing, saying the same stuff in the same last 6 years.
They could have done it in a tweet. All right. So shout out to Xbox for that. I appreciate it. The Great Wandering Dutch. Dutch, listen. It's officially breakfast for you at this point. So I want to just say I'm jealous because I'm not going to have anything interesting to eat tonight, but you're going to get to go and have a bacon, egg, and cheese in a second. So I'm very jealous of what you get to do. Dutch, thanks for being here tonight, buddy. You also busted your hump doing podcast today, covering the footage, and then being with us for 3 hours into the wee hours of the night. Dutch, let them know where they can find you, and I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm going to get about 2 hours sleep and then back up again for work. So,
God bless you, Dutch. God bless you.
But yeah, no, it's been a blast. Thanks for having us over. Yeah, you can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch or Wondering Dutch X, PlayStation, Xbox, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. And yeah, again, it's been a blast. A weird day, but I'm glad to get this slight silence from the community and some of these crybabies that have lost all their absolute minds over this last 2 weeks and hopefully get some mental health treatment. Beyond that, have an awesome night, everyone.
No, great to have you here, Dutch. I really, really appreciate it. The great Nib was with us as well. Nib, listen, I would like it if you could move your restaurant to New York for multiple reasons. First of all, I'd like to eat the cuisine, first of all. Second of all, I want to sponsor you. I'd like to support the family. And third, I'd like to have you on the show more, but we can't because it's always so late. So, Nib, listen, whenever you can come on the show, please do me a favor. Don't be shy. Either jump on the show or write me in Twitter and just say, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to be home. Any week, you're always welcome. Love to get your takes on gaming, but let people know where they can find you. And thanks for being here tonight, Nib.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was actually a really interesting show. And like it, from a small show, there's a lot to talk about.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's just Twitter. That's the only thing I'm on. NIB95_. That's it.
Great to have you, Nib. Just a couple of shout outs to the guys that had to leave earlier. Guys, go over and check out the great D-Back. You know, D, I've known D for a very long time. I really like talking games with him, talking tech. We talk TVs, microphones, things like that behind the scenes. Outstanding guy. That's D-Back, just D_Batch. Go over and see him. Brap had to leave early too. That's Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. Brap does Wednesday nights at 9, but you just never know. You never know. If you subscribe to his channel, it just could be on a Monday night. It could be a Tuesday. It could be a Sunday afternoon. He'll do a Brap rant. So go over and check him out. Shout out to Craig Harris, too. And I have to look at Craig because Craig has a very interesting Twitter handle. It's at Craig Harris 456. I like it. I got to be honest with you. I like it. Go over and check out Craig over there. He does great content as well on YouTube. The great J-Dub City. You guys know where to find Jay. Jay is, if you don't know where to find him, you can find him over on, of course, the Twitters at JDubCity16, or you can just find
scrolling on Twitter.
Oh, that's definitely where you want to find him. Or he'll be playing Helldivers 2 with me all weekend long. So shout out to Jay. Shout out to the great Broken Games HD as well. BG does Weapon Wheel Podcast 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday nights. I'm sure this weekend is going to be a doozy. I'll be tuned in. I'll be in the audience for sure. And that's at Broken Games HDR _ if you will. Making sure I did not forget anybody else. Oh, of course. How could we forget? The great Porter Rock was with us. Porter Rock 77. I was on 60 Frames No Lag podcast Tuesday night. We did 3 hours over there speculating what today's podcast was going to be all about. That's at Porter Rock 77 _. And man, I hope I did not forget anybody. I don't believe I did, but you never know. I hope I did not. If I did, I apologize, guys. You can definitely go back, watch the show, and you'll get all that information up front. That being said, guys, enjoy the weekend. Go over to twitch.tv, Mooch TV, drop the O's for zeros. It's M00CHTV. We're going to be doing Helldivers on Sunday for probably about 4 hours and Monday for a good 2 or 3. I got a long weekend. What can I say? So I'm going to take advantage of it. Right? So I'll see you guys.
I got to go play that now.
By the way, on Helldivers, it's just hit 250 peak on Steam now.
That's unbelievable.
It's going to be 250 plus one because I'm going to play right now.
For context, Halo Infinite's record is 270.
Oh wow!
So it's done really well.
Wow!
And that hit at launch on Halo Infinite too. What's interesting with Helldivers is that it keeps increasing each night. It's not seeing that peak and then drop off. It seems to get higher.
Like snowballing,
the snowball. It's very interesting.
I had footage up, and the whole time I loved the show. I
love
like, oh my
it.
God, I can't wait to go play afterwards. I'm going to try and get on tonight. I have an early morning tomorrow, so a couple people were reaching out to me on Twitter during the show. They're like, Mooch, you going to play after this? You going to play? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, Jez, if you're on and the whole family ends up not watching a movie or something like that, I will join you tonight. I will jump on for sure. Shout out to Mary Wilcox, Impatient Fi. I see all you guys out there. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And guys, go over to twitch.tv. Mooch TV. It's the same as here, same as Twitter, same on Twitch. M00CHTV. Go over and add me over there because I really want to start to bring some of the YouTube community over there, then make some VODs and bring them back over here from some of the fun clips we have. That being said, we'll see you next week. Go play some games, and we'll see you later. Thanks a lot. Good night.